Brandy Hall disappeared on Thursday, August 17, 2006. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Brandy Hall's last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to her. In Central Florida, a firefighter and mother goes missing.
She left by herself, and she did not appear to be in any kind of distress.
24 hours later, her truck turns up empty, submerged in a pond.
I seen a picture of Brandy's truck being pulled out of a pond, and I just started going crazy.
Did Brandy Hall have reason to flee?
I can't grasp the concept of her just up and leaving and living in Costa Rica, sipping a pina colada.
Or did someone want to hurt her?
You can't help but think it. Perfect timing. Right before his court appearance, she disappears.
As an investigation begins, the mysteries only multiply.
She was fixing to get her life back. She was fixing to get her job back. Things were looking so good.
Leaving Brandy's loved ones in an endless state of panic.
Somebody wake me up out of this horrible, horrible nightmare.
It's Thursday night, August 17th, 2006. 32-year-old Brandy Hall has just begun her shift at the volunteer fire station in Malabar, Florida. Brandy is one of only 2 female firefighters in the squad, but she fits right in and is well-liked by her colleagues.
Brandy's the kind of a person that comes around once in a lifetime that's truly, genuinely sincere about helping others. If you were going to be anybody in the fire service, you'd want to be like Brandy Hall.
Brandy is something of a local hero. Her adventurous spirit shaped by the sandy swamps and palm groves of Bull Creek, where she grew up.
I think growing up in Bull Creek did good for Brandy. And just like a little community that everybody sticks together and takes care of everybody.
Bull Creek's amazing. It's 22,000 acres of beautiful woods, and that was our playground out there. We learned how to grow up back there.
From an early age, Brandy was a strong, tough girl.
I was initiated by Brandy. The first day I met her, she threw me into the mud. Brandy's very much the tomboy who wore Wranglers and boots and camouflage jackets, and that was Brandy.
She was more like a boy. She did everything boys did. She drove the airboat. She drove the four-wheelers and three-wheelers, and she fed off that stuff. She loved it. She liked being better than the boys. She was a happy girl. She was always the one that had the bright ideas.
Although Brandy seemed invincible, she almost lost her life in a 3-wheel all-terrain vehicle accident when she was 11.
She happened to go up a hill, and the three-wheeler came back onto her face. Her skull was fractured, both her jaws were broken, a couple other cheekbone areas were broken.
She was in surgery, I think it was 10 to 12 hours, I believe, something like that. It was really traumatic.
After a month in the hospital, Brandy was released and underwent home care for another year. Despite lifelong pain and scarring, and several more surgeries as she continued to grow, Brandy rebounded.
I don't think the accident changed her. She had too much willpower. She had too much strength and want to do in her life, and you don't pick on Brandy. It don't matter whether she had a 3-wheeler accident or not. She was still gonna kick your butt if you picked on her.
But Brandy's accident did profoundly affect her in another way.
I believe it made her dedicate her life to wanting to help other people. That's why she became the firefighter and an EMT and a paramedic, because she wanted to always be there to help everyone.
Fresh out of high school, Brandy began volunteering at the Hollapaw Fire Station. It's there that she met Jeff Hall, another firefighter, and her future husband.
When we first met, she was getting in there, getting her hands dirty, and I really liked that. I mean, she was mixing it up good, just like the other guys. I'd been in the fire service for years, and you didn't see too many women like that, so that's what I think was the initial attraction.
In 1992, Jeff and Brandy were married, and their careers took off. Jeff was promoted to fire chief of Osceola County, and Brandy started a full-time position at the Palm Bay Fire Station.
She was an excellent firefighter, and she could go in at a moment's notice and tell you exactly what was going on by the color of the smoke, the sounds that the building makes. She saved 95% of the homes that she went on.
Despite working 24-hour shifts, Brandy and Jeff made time to start a family, first having a girl and then a boy.
Oh, she was a fantastic mother. You couldn't ask for a better mother. Being a firefighter, she worked 1 day on and 2 days off. Jeff and Brandy worked the same shift, so I would have them on their day that they worked all day and all night. She'd always call me and tell me to make sure that they were breathing, to put my hand on their stomach to make sure they're breathing. Maybe with some of the scenes that she saw, and she just wanted to make sure that they were still alive. She just loved her children and she loved her job.
By 2005, Brandy is leading a comfortable, happy life. But on July 2nd, she receives shocking news. Her husband Jeff and a friend are arrested for marijuana cultivation.
I really can't remember how it all came into play, how the ball started getting rolling. Just thought it would be fun and not really having the thought of the repercussions of such actions. It was a stupid mistake.
The grow operation was located on 13 acres of land, south of where Brandy and Jeff live with their children. Jeff pleads guilty to the charges, but maintains that Brandy has nothing to do with it.
Brandy thought I was renting the property to somebody. I was able to hide the money because we made a great deal of money. I had my pension, Brandy had a good salary, and also I had told people that I had rented our property for a pretty decent amount of money.
But Jeff is unable to shield Brandy from the repercussions of his crime. The property is in both his and Brandy's name, so she is also legally responsible. 6 days later, the authorities come to the fire station to arrest Brandy.
I could not believe it. I saw no reason why or how they even got an arrest warrant for her. I was very surprised. They waited till she was on duty and came and basically made a public spectacle out of her. When I picked her up from jail, she was just in shambles. I mean, she was constantly crying. I mean, I was terrified for her.
Brandy's charges are dropped soon after she is released from jail. But then she receives another blow. After 10 years of service, Brandy is fired.
Brandy's record as firefighter was immaculate. I think she got some of the highest reviews consistently every year. She never thought that it would actually go as far as terminate her. She thought everything would be dropped. The charges that would be dropped against her.
Brandy lived for the fire service, and it just tore her apart.
It was devastating. She was crying. She's like, "Mom, I can't lose my job," because she'd worked so hard, and it meant everything to her.
Not one to bow to adversity, Brandy immediately sets out to get her job back, seeking work as a volunteer in the nearby town of Malabar.
In the state of Florida, if you stay out of the fire service for a 2-year period of time, you lose your certifications. And she did not want to lose her certifications. And she asked me if I could bring her in and allow her the opportunity to be a volunteer.
Because Brandy and Jeff are also financially strapped, she wastes no time in finding paid work.
She started working for us in our construction company, just doing odd jobs, painting manholes or backflows and stuff like that. She was fixing to get her life back. She was fixing to get her job back. Everything was fixing to be settled with that. The trouble with the grow house and stuff, things were looking so good.
A year after his arrest, Jeff has a court date to be sentenced for his crime. Although there's a chance of getting off on probation, Jeff's former position as fire chief could bring the law down harder on him.
I was the chief. Now, what's this political figure? Brandy was afraid I was going to go to jail for a minimum mandatory of 3 years, if not higher.
In hopes of helping lighten the sentence, Brandy agrees to be a character witness on Jeff's behalf. She also enlists the help of her boss at the Malabar Fire Department.
I was approached by Brandy the evening before the court trial for her husband, and she asked if I would go to be a character reference at his trial, and hopefully it may soften the punishment.
On the eve of Jeff's hearing, Brandy is scheduled to stay at the station overnight. As she always does when she's working, Brandy says prayers with the children over the phone before they go to bed.
I called Brandy to say the prayer with the kids. We talked, and then I said, okay, I'll see you tomorrow.
An hour after hanging up the phone with Brandy, Jeff receives another call.
Mom had called me and said, Jeff, do you realize that your court schedule had changed to like 8 o'clock in the morning? So I called and left a message with the lawyer, and I immediately tried to call Brandy.
But Jeff is unable to reach her. Brandy doesn't answer her phone, and her voicemail box is full.
That morning when I woke up, I talked to my attorney. He goes, no, there's nothing to worry about. We just need to be there early. Don't be there at 1 o'clock. Get there around 10 or 11 o'clock, and I'll meet you there. And then I tried to call Brandy. I never could get a hold of her. I called the fire department. They said she had already left.
Because Brandy's shift ends at 7 a.m., Jeff believes his wife is on her way home. But as he prepares the kids for school, Brandy doesn't show up.
I don't know if there's anything that could describe that. I mean, I was scared. I knew in my heart I was going to go to jail. Dropping the kids off at school, man, I was crying.
Jeff says goodbye to his children and begins the hour-long journey to the Osceola courthouse for his sentencing hearing. While driving, he continues trying to find Brandy.
I finally got a hold of TJ. He worked with Brandy at the fire station. They were good buddies. He said, Jeff, she left last night about 10:30.
Jeff is shocked. If Brandy left the station the night before, where is she now?
I mean, I was driving to court. I was worried to death I was going to be late there, not knowing what was going to go on, and it was just crazy. I was scared, and it just felt lost.
Coming up, in a tragic piece of timing, one parent goes to jail while the other remains missing.
Everything's running through my mind. What about the kids? Where's Brandy? It was terrifying.
Jeff Hall has just learned that his wife Brandy is missing. The 32-year-old volunteer firefighter was scheduled to be at the station until her shift ended at 7 a.m. But according to a colleague, Brandy left the night before.
I'm getting scared at this time. I'm freaking out. Where's she at? And got the court thing I'm going to. So it was very chaotic. Very chaotic.
For Brandy's husband, Jeff, the timing couldn't be worse. He's en route to a sentencing hearing for a marijuana cultivation charge he's pled guilty to. Despite an intense desire to begin searching for his wife, he must keep heading toward the courthouse.
I would just start driving around trying to find, I would have more time to try to look, just drive around and see where she went to. And I just couldn't do all that. I mean, I was driving to court.
Jeff arrives at the courthouse, hoping against all odds that Brandy will be there. Instead, he finds a small crowd of family and friends gathered outside, but no one knows where Brandy is.
I got to the courthouse and immediately talked to my lawyer, and he goes, Jeff, what's wrong with you? And I said, I can't find Brandy. And then, of course, Brandy's mom starts winging out, just, where's she at, where's she at?
We were all standing there together, and he didn't know where she was at either. So we didn't know what to think.
I was frightened, I was scared to death. But then I got to thinking, well, she's so petrified of this place.
Jeff recalls an earlier episode when Brandy refused to enter the court building.
During a pre-trial hearing, she wanted to stay in the truck. Our attorney told me it's gonna last like 5 minutes. But she was so scared to go into that courthouse, she stayed in the truck. She was just terrified, totally terrified. I mean, just the whole atmosphere. I mean, it's just this whole part of our life was a very scary time. It was very traumatizing.
Jeff hopes that his wife has simply gotten cold feet. At the moment, he has no choice but to put his thoughts of Brandy aside and focus on his sentencing.
The hearing didn't last, I wouldn't think, maybe half an hour at that. Well, I lost all track of time. I was constantly thinking about Brandy not showing up, not being able to contact her. It went so fast. I mean, it was just me standing up there with my attorneys and the judge saying, you get 18 months Department of Correction, 3.5 years probation, and it's over with.
Jeff's sentence of 18 months in prison seems particularly harsh to other firefighters.
They wanted to make an example because, we're in a trusted position, and that can't be tolerated. Your law enforcement and your fire and EMS are the people that have impeccable reputations, and to do this, it lost the trust of all the people. So, you got to abide by the law.
For Jeff, the sentence goes in one ear and out the other. All he knows is that he'll be locked up and unable to look for Brandy.
Until I got sentenced, and until I got taken back and got my fingerprints again, and, it's just constantly, run through my mind. What about the kids? Where's Brandy? It was terrifying.
As Jeff is handcuffed and taken away, family members quickly arrange for Brandy and Jeff's children to be picked up from school. Then they turn their attention to Brandy.
We knew where Jeff was going, so then after it was over, then it was time to go find out where Brandy was at, why she wasn't there.
But the facts are few. Brandy left the fire station the night before at 10:30 p.m. Now, almost 24 hours later, no one has seen or heard from her. Brandy's mother can't help but worry about her daughter's state of mind.
Brandy told me she and Jeff weren't getting along. I believe that their relationship got bad after he got arrested, and then she got arrested, and I'm sure Brandy was angry at Jeff over all this. She has a book probably 3 or 4 inches wide of all the certificates that she's accomplished. You can't be accountable for what somebody else is doing.
Unable to sit back and wait for news any longer, Debbie decides to look for Brandy herself.
I don't know, I just went towards Palm Bay, Malabar, looking. I probably drove by Brandy and Jeff's house to see if she might be there for any reason, just looking to see if I see her truck anywhere and find out what's going on.
Debbie drives for hours, searching for any sign of Brandy. It's almost dark when her worst fears are realized.
I remember coming to a stop sign. Right before the stop sign, Cher, one of her best friends, was coming the other way. Seems like she might have got out of the car and come running to me. And she's like, they just pulled Brandy's truck up out of the pond.
Coming up, has Brandy taken her own life?
I mean, I sit there with my head on the window, just close my eyes, cried. I cried like a baby.
Florida firefighter Brandy Hall never came home after ending her shift early on August 17, 2006. Her husband Jeff had no time to look for her before making a scheduled court appearance. Now he's sitting in jail, completely isolated from any news in the search for his wife.
When I was in the holding cell, I had no contact with my family, so if something should arise, I wouldn't know if Brandy showed up or didn't show up. And I was worried sick the whole time, and this was hours and hours and hours. I was just sitting there with my head against the wall, against the window, just, stomach in a knot, sick of my stomach.
Through the window of his cell, Jeff is able to see a television that the guards are watching. When the 11 o'clock news begins broadcasting, he gets the shock of his life.
I looked up and I seen a picture of Brandy's truck being pulled out of a pond, and I just started going crazy. I mean, emotionally, because it's obvious her truck. That was her pride and joy. Her truck. It's always her truck. I'm starting to freak out in my mind and saying, okay, what's going on here? Why is this, and just didn't know what to think. I mean, I was like a basket case at this point in time.
Jeff can only imagine what the images mean. He must wait to learn anything more until he is finished being processed.
I went to the 23-hour lockup, and I don't even know what time that was. When you get in there, you're allowed one phone call. I was able to call my mom, and she tried to fill me in.
She tells him that earlier in the day, a man fishing in Palm Bay found a firefighter's bunker bag. The items inside, boots, pants, a jacket, and helmet, all belonged to Brandy Hall. Firefighters responding to the scene found broken branches and tire marks, suggesting that a vehicle was submerged underwater. They work with police to pull the truck out and confirm that it's Brandy's.
I just got my head hung against the window, just thinking, you know, what's going on, what's happening. Just cried. I cried like a baby. I mean, I sit there with my head on the window, just closed my eyes and cried.
In Palm Bay, firefighters and police officers work into the night to look for Brandy. Many of them know her personally and are deeply affected by the search.
It was very traumatic for me. I knew the family, I knew the children, and the circumstances of how we found this thing, and no one knowing anything, or what could have happened, or what did happen. It put a strain on me, personally.
Once Brandy's truck is fully removed from the water, the responders brace themselves for what they will find.
When they first opened the doors, they weren't sure if Brandy Hall was inside of the truck. When they let the water out of the vehicle and looked inside, they discovered that Miss Hall was in fact not in the vehicle.
The truck is sent to the station for a thorough forensic examination. The next morning, investigators resume searching.
Cadaver dogs were used to search the area. Volunteers were used to search that area. The woods and the area around that lake were searched pretty thoroughly by numerous volunteers and other agencies.
Divers also entered the pond, probing the murky depths for personal items relating to Brandy, or the firefighter herself.
Suicide was a theory. She had some financial pressures based on her losing her job at Palm Bay Fire Department, as well as court costs for her husband, who had pled guilty to a cultivation of cannabis charge in Osceola County.
The last time that I saw Brandy, she seemed okay to me, but she seemed like she was a little stressed out. The most thing that was weighing on Brandy's mind was her bills. You know, that she just felt like she was kind of getting buried. It was like she felt like she was working and never getting ahead. We didn't talk about Jeff's sentencing hearing a lot because the kids were around that day, but she did mention that, you know, she was nervous about the outcome and what was going to happen.
To be sure that the divers haven't missed anything, police begin work draining the pond. They also start developing other theories.
From there, investigators had to talk to Brandy Hall's family and friends to try to get a timeline of where she had gone, who she had talked to, and where she should have been at the time she went missing.
Brandy's husband, Jeff, is one of the first to be approached.
It was 1 to 2 days after I got put in jail that a detective came and saw me. Basically asked me if I did anything bad to her, and I said, no, I didn't.
Jeff goes over with the detective the last contact he had with his wife.
He spoke with her around 9:30 the night before her truck was found, which would have been August 17th, when she called to say the prayers with her kids. He tried calling her at approximately 11 o'clock and was unable to reach her.
Detectives also speak to firefighters who were working with Brandy the night she disappeared.
Brandy Hall had told her coworkers that she just wasn't feeling good, and her stomach seemed upset, so she was going to go home and sleep.
Surveillance video from the fire station seems to confirm nothing out of the ordinary occurred that last night.
They looked at the video at the Malabar Volunteer Fire Department to make sure she didn't have any altercations with anybody there, as well as to see if anybody had followed her out of the parking lot.
The footage shows Brandy relaxed and at ease, speaking with her fellow firefighters in the station.
She left by herself, and she did not appear to be in any kind of distress or emotionally upset or anything. She left as anybody would leave work.
The timestamp on the surveillance cameras pinpoints Brandy's departure at 10:50 p.m. Investigators look next at Brandy's phone activity.
Cell phone records confirm that Brandy Hall called home approximately 9:30 at night, which would have been around the kid's bedtime. Cell phone records also confirmed that Jeff Hall had attempted to call Brandy Hall at approximately the time she would have been leaving the Malabar Volunteer Fire Department.
Both calls are consistent with Jeff's statement. But Jeff wasn't the last person to speak to Brandy that night.
Cell phone records also showed there was a phone call at 11:05 p.m. where there was an 11-minute conversation, which ended up being the last conversation documented that Miss Hall had.
Coming up, could this call lead police to Brandy's whereabouts? On August 17th, 2006, Brandy Hall walks out of the Malabar fire station and disappears. According to coworkers and in surveillance footage, Brandy's last hours at work don't seem out of the ordinary. But just after she leaves, Brandy places one last phone call. Police are able to trace the call to Randall Richmond, Brandy's former boss at the Palm Bay Fire Department.
Randall Richmond was a really close friend of the family to Brandy and Jeff. Firefighters are a very tight-knit group. Their families got together all the time and went camping together, and they just did all kinds of fun things together.
On Sunday, August 20th, Randall comes in for questioning and tells investigators shocking news. Brandy was planning on fleeing.
Mr. Richmond came into the police department, stated that Miss Hall had spoke to him Thursday night, which would have been August 17th, and said that she was leaving, she was going away. She was waiting at the Sunoco gas station for money. Miss Hall did not tell Mr. Richmond who was supposed to bring her money, only that she couldn't take it anymore. She was just going to go away and disappear.
Randall's account points the investigation in an entirely new direction. Did Brandy leave on her own accord? It's hard for those close to her to imagine.
I was hoping to God that maybe she got angry and just decided to dump the truck and walk away and get her thoughts together before she came back. But I can't grasp the concept of her just up and leaving and living in Costa Rica, sipping a pina colada and getting away from it all. I can't envision that.
I don't think Brandy left on her own accord. She had to be forced, in my sense, because there's no way she would leave her children. No matter what happened, she would not leave her children.
There's also the evidence at the pond. If Brandy fled, was sinking her truck part of an elaborate scheme to cover her tracks?
To know Brandy and know the type of person she was towards her vehicles, she wouldn't put her truck in the water. It's just impossible to think that. Somebody else is involved here. Somebody else had a helping hand in this.
Despite their doubts, detectives go ahead and check out Randall's story, but they are unable to confirm any of the details.
Nobody at the gas station remembered seeing Brandy Hall's truck there that evening, and there was no exterior video, so it was unable to be verified if she was in fact there.
Data from Brandy's cell phone carrier doesn't support the account either.
The information from the cell tower didn't show a pinpoint location, so where the signal was coming from could have been anywhere in a 3-mile radius, which would have included that Sunoco gas station, but also would have included the lake where her truck was eventually found.
As police go over this information, the results from the forensics examination of Brandy's truck come back. Detectives have found blood, and it belongs to Brandy.
The blood was in the map pocket of the driver's side door and also on the driver's side floorboard. Again, it was difficult to determine how much blood was there because of the water being mixed with it. So we couldn't tell just from looking at the blood if there was enough to say that the person would not have been able to survive with whatever injury caused that blood.
The new clue fuels speculation that Brandy staged her own murder in order to disappear.
Miss Hall would have known how to draw her own blood based on her training as a paramedic and as an EMT. She would have been around needles and would have had opportunity to do so.
Meanwhile, police finished draining the pond where Brandy's truck was found.
They couldn't find her body, so at that point, suicide seemed the least likely.
Brandy's loved ones wonder why, in all the searches, police have not turned up Brandy's gun.
She just grew up with guns. She always had a gun in her truck at all times. Her dad was very, very protective of her. Her dad taught her to keep guns on her. That was very normal for her to have that on her.
Brandy's missing gun underlines a more important point in the case. According to her friends, if someone approached Brandy that night, it had to be someone she knew.
Brandy wouldn't allow strangers near her truck or her equipment. And if she felt threatened, she wouldn't have them come very close to her either, so she was a very cautious person. If you look at it in that light, if they did assault her or attacked her, she would have had to trust them to allow them to get that close.
For detectives, the investigation has returned to square one. Who would want to hurt Brandy?
There's not a soul in the world that I know of that would want to ever hurt or harm Brandy. Everybody admired her. She was the most well-liked person I was ever associated with in my life.
But Brandy's golden reputation was much tarnished in the last year by her husband's arrest. Police begin forming a new theory. Could her husband's marijuana operation have put Brandy in danger?
I did hear that they were dealing with dangerous people. And because she was going to go in and testify on Jeff's behalf, I think they thought that she was going to release some names. And they didn't want that to happen.
The strange timing of Brandy's disappearance puts Jeff under suspicion.
You can't help but think it. Perfect timing. Right before his court appearance, she disappears. Did he do it because she may have spoke out about him? Who knows?
Police decide that it's time to speak to Jeff again. But the investigation hits a serious setback. Jeff is no longer talking. Coming up, will new clues lead investigators to Brandy Hall?
When they discovered the backpack, they looked inside the contents, found the day planner and the name Brandy Hall.
It's been a week since Brandy Hall's truck was found in the bottom of a pond in Palm Bay, Florida. But the 32-year-old mother of two is still missing. Investigators are beginning to suspect foul play and take a closer look at Brandy's husband, Jeff.
At the time of Miss Hall's disappearance, her husband was due to be sentenced. It was unclear whether she didn't want to testify. The theory was that there was drug dealers involved with a marijuana grow operation that killed her to silence her because Jeff was going to turn evidence against somebody.
But police are unable to talk to Jeff. He's out of jail and appealing his sentence.
Mr. Hall would not speak about the case, and his lawyers actually didn't want him to speak to us because it was still ongoing as far as the sentencing, and we were unable to clear up whether there was a bigger picture or other people involved that may have wanted to silence Miss Hall.
For police, Jeff's silence suggests he may have something to hide.
But Mr. Hall, he was considered a suspect that we had to eliminate, as was a lot of people in her circle. The fact that Mr. Hall was not able to speak directly with us caused a big question mark to be placed over his name as far as suspicion of guilt.
With no way to pursue this angle, the case begins to stall.
After the initial searches, it kind of just turned into nothing. I even hate to say it, it's like she just dropped off the face of the earth.
Time went on and nothing came of anything, and so they just sort of let it go like a cold case, I believe.
Almost a year has passed since Brandy Hall has gone missing. Family and friends find it increasingly difficult to hold on to the hope that Brandy is alive, when suddenly a clue surfaces.
On June 28, 2007, a backpack was discovered in a canal in Indian River County that was found to be Miss Hall's backpack that contained her day planner and some other personal items. When they discovered the backpack, they looked inside the contents, found the day planner and the name Brandy Hall.
The canal is approximately 30 miles south of the pond where Brandy's truck was found.
It's unclear how that backpack came to be in there. It's not connected in any way via any waterway, so the backpack had to have been thrown in to that canal close to where it was discovered.
The discovery of the backpack essentially rules out the theory that Brandy fled on her own.
The backpack was a small backpack and wouldn't be consistent with somebody traveling. There was some clothing found in the backpack. It wasn't enough to support anybody for more than a change of clothes.
Loved ones are also struck by the absence of Brandy's medication, which she took to fight the pain of the ATV accident she had as a child.
Brandy went nowhere without her medication because she would have major headaches. The medicine stayed in that backpack and they were never found.
Detectives follow through with the new lead, but are disappointed by the lack of results.
After the backpack was discovered, Miami Search and Rescue came back up with side-scanning sonar to check that canal to determine if maybe her body had been dumped in there or if she was in that canal or if there was any other evidence items. It ended up being just another dead end, so to speak, in this investigation.
Again, the search for Brandy hits a standstill. But then, there's movement in the case. After 14 months of silence, Brandy's husband, Jeff, agrees to talk.
I first spoke directly with the investigators as soon as the appeals process was over with. I think there was a lot of misconception, about that or why I was doing that, but we're trying to appeal a very serious situation.
Jeff loses his appeal and begins serving an 18-month sentence for marijuana cultivation.
It was probably within a month of me being sentenced. So they came to Central Florida Reception Center where I was at and talked to me there. I mean, I know the process, being thought of as a suspect or a person of interest because, I understand, I get all that. I'm a spouse.
Palm Bay police visit Jeff several times during his incarceration. They check out his whereabouts the night that Brandy went missing and make arrangements for him to take a lie detector test as soon as he's out.
Mr. Hall took the polygraph examination, and the results were that there was no deception indicated. Every time we contact Mr. Hall, he's very open with information. He's very forthcoming and willing to work with us however he can just to get an answer of what happened to his wife. I would not characterize Mr. Hall as a suspect at all.
In speaking with Jeff, Detective Pusatir is also able to clear up the rumors that Brandy was kidnapped or killed to prevent her from speaking out in court.
There's not no drug syndicate out of Mexico like was rumored to have or some big, huge operation. I say that's nonsense. I mean, total nonsense.
It was a smaller grow operation. They were just getting started. There was no Colombian drug lords out to kill them that had come up in some of the rumors that, oh, I think she was killed by drug dealers. We were able to eliminate that as a possible motive.
For Jeff, the feeling that his crime may have colored people's perception of Brandy's disappearance weighs heavily on him.
Would things have been handled differently if I didn't go to jail? Would more people have been concerned about looking for her? And, that just sucks. It's something that I did. And I got weight on my shoulders because I went to jail, did something wrong. And that's hard to live with.
But with Jeff's cooperation, police are able to consider a new angle. They take a closer look at Randall Richmond, Brandy's former boss, with whom Jeff believes she was having an affair.
After she went missing, I found one of her cell phones and I found some text messages. The text messages pretty much at that point in time made me realize that her and Randall were having an affair.
But police have already looked at Randall. He was the last person to speak to Brandy on August 17th, the night she disappeared.
In December of 2007, I wrote a search warrant for Mr. Richmond's vehicle. This was based on the fact that he was the last person to communicate with her. On August 18th, his truck was seen several times not far from where her truck was discovered. His vehicle was seized and a search warrant executed on it, looking for trace evidence of blood or any hair or fibers that belonged to Miss Hall.
No evidence is found inside Randall's vehicle, and when he is called in for questioning, the exact nature of his relationship with Brandy is difficult to define.
Mr. Richmond characterized their relationship as an emotional affair, that he never crossed any boundaries.
But others close to Brandy have a different perspective.
Brandy did confide in me about having an affair. I don't think it was a planned thing. I think it kind of just happened.
Some say that for Randall's wife, the rumors were real enough to provoke a very public reaction, 7 months before Brandy went missing.
Several witnesses told investigators that they saw Anne-Marie Richmond and Brandy Hall have a verbal confrontation over Brandy's relationship with Randall Richmond. It came up later in the investigation that several people, including Jeff Hall, saw threatening text messages back and forth between Brandy Hall and Anne-Marie Richmond, where they were sending threats back and forth to each other.
But Palm Bay police have trouble substantiating any of this information.
Anne-Marie Richmond claimed to not know anything of what was going on, and Mr. Richmond consistently claimed that he did not know what happened to Brandy Hall other than that last phone call where she said she was going to disappear.
Neither Randall nor his wife has ever been named a suspect or person of interest in the case. While rumors still circulate, Brandy's loved ones remain focused on what's most important, finding Brandy.
I just don't want people to lose sight of the kind of person that she was, because a lot of us make horrible and wrong decisions and choices in our life, but it doesn't necessarily make us a bad person. And she was a good person, and I don't believe she ever meant to hurt anybody. She was just trying to live her life and love her kids and have her family, you know, and I miss her a lot.
Years have passed since Brandy's 2006 disappearance. With no answers and no new leads, Brandy's family and friends struggle to keep on without her.
I saw Brandy every day. We were a close family, and it's so hard that she's not here. It's like somebody wake me up out of this horrible, horrible nightmare.
I was close with her. She was like a daughter. She did so much for this department, and it hurts that she's gone now. Her picture's all over this fire station. This has gone on too long, and it's impacted too many people here.
When we go back in Bull Creek, it's hard on me because I think of Brandy all the time. I think she talks to me through the trees. I don't know why, but I'll find myself staring at a tree and it dances, and there's not a tree around it that's doing the same thing.
Although Brandy's husband, Jeff, is out of jail and reunited with his family, his life will never be the same. He misses his wife, and so do their children.
I mean, if they would find her alive or find her dead, I think it would be easier on the kids. Definitely, they think about it every day, I'm sure. Yeah, because my son even asked me, are we still looking for mom? He's still looking for mom. Yes. You cannot pull the wool over kids' eyes, you know, especially when it comes to their mom.
Patty Vaughn disappeared on Wednesday, December 25th, 1996. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Patty Vaughn's last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to her. When a dedicated mother's minivan is found abandoned on the side of the road, panic ensues.
She had been gone for more than 24 hours.
I kept thinking I was going to look in one of those drainage ditches and Patty was going to be in there.
Investigators soon find hints of foul play.
There was blood found in the van.
And then, a look into Patty Vaughn's past reveals a complicated love triangle.
They had a huge fight. She got angry, got in her van, and left.
Could problems in a relationship have led to murder?
I don't think anybody else has the motive or the opportunity.
You just can't focus on one person. We are going to solve this case.
It is Christmas Eve, 1996, near San Antonio, Texas, where the festive city streets are glowing with holiday cheer. At Lavernia United Methodist Church, 32-year-old mother of three Patty Vaughn performs for an intimate Christmas celebration.
Patty has probably been singing before she talked. She had just a very sweet, soothing voice, almost like a songbird. She really enjoyed it. You know, they just created such great music together.
Patty was very proud of her music group. Singing with them was one of the things in life that gave her peace.
Church was huge in Patty's life. Patty's relationship with God was right up there with her relationship with her children.
While Patty carols on the altar, her husband Jerry Ray Vaughn and their three young children watch from the pews. Although the Vaughn's marriage has been strained lately, they are committed to keeping their relationship amicable.
Patty would never complain. You look at her family, and it was cookies and cream. Everything was perfect.
But once the service ends, Patty and JR, who have been separated for over 2 months, part ways. Patty and the children head over to her aunt's house, where they will meet up with Patty's old flame, a man named Gary, while JR drives back to his apartment in San Antonio.
It was going to be a wonderful Christmas because we were going to have Patty and Gary and the children.
Patty Vaughn and Gary's relationship has a long and complicated history. Patty was 18 years old in 1982 when she met Gary. She fell in love with the young Texan after moving to San Antonio with her family.
They had mad, crazy love for each other back then.
They had quite a serious relationship, and I think had circumstances been different, I think they probably would have stayed together. But a few months after they had been seeing each other, his ex-girlfriend came to him and told him that she was pregnant with his child. And out of a sense of obligation, he broke it off with Patty. Patty was devastated, was totally devastated.
Emotionally scarred from the breakup, Patty kept herself busy. She was waiting tables while attending classes at a community college.
She was working at a little hamburger joint. JR came into the establishment. He was a little bit older than Patty. Then they had known each other for a couple of years and got married.
Patty and J.R. Vaughn were married on May 18, 1985. For 11 and a half years, the couple worked at making a life together. They had a family construction contracting business and 3 children. But despite many solid years together, by the fall of 1996, Patty realized she was unhappy.
She was being torn apart inside and everything was falling apart, but my brother best described it as her being a one-legged duck, smooth and graceful on top, but paddling like hell underneath.
Finally, on Columbus Day weekend 1996, Patty and Jerry Ray decided it was time to separate and reevaluate their marriage. By the end of October, JR had moved out of the family home in Lavernia and into an apartment in San Antonio.
She stayed in the family home. That was a mutual decision between Patty and JR, I think, at the time, for the sake of the children. And I remember when we knew that they really had separated, it was like the weight of the world had been lifted from her shoulders, and she was happy.
And then, just weeks after the separation, Patty confided in her cousin Kathy that she had been communicating again with the man who had captured her heart so many years earlier.
She had told me that Gary had divorced and that she was really excited because they were talking again.
I think it was just part of her remembering who she was, you know, remembering all the good stuff about herself.
When Patty, Gary, and her children arrive at Aunt Jean's house on Christmas Eve, the celebration has already begun. Patty worries how the new man in her life will be received.
Patty felt very guilty because she was still married to JR. And that part of her, that conscience, that moral issue was always there with her. Am I doing the right thing? Am I going to be called a bad mother?
But her family welcomes them both with open arms.
Basically, we all just always told her, you're a good person, you know what's right for your life, so just follow your heart.
As far as Christmas Eve at the house, I mean, it was perfect.
The party comes to an end around midnight. The family wishes each other a Merry Christmas and says their goodbyes.
Patty gave me a big old hug and said, okay, I'll talk to you tomorrow. And that was it. I mean, it was no different than any other night.
But unbeknownst to all, this is the last Christmas they will ever share together. Coming up, an explosive argument on Christmas Day tears a family apart.
She got angry and got in her van and left.
After an 11-year marriage, Patty Vaughn and her husband JR have decided to split up. Although conflicted about her decision to separate, Patty has been seeing an old boyfriend. On Christmas Eve 1996, Patty openly shares her rekindled relationship with her extended family. All goes well. At the end of the night, the family exchanges hugs and wishes each other a Merry Christmas.
We really didn't make any plans for Christmas Day because we knew that her plans were to have JR over.
It's Christmas morning, and Patty's husband JR arrives at the family home around 8 o'clock. Despite their recent difficulties, Patty and JR have agreed that it's best to spend Christmas Day together as a family for the sake of their children.
He was to arrive early in the morning, do the Santa Claus thing with the children, and then they were having dinner with the Vaughn family at their home later in the afternoon.
If all goes well, Patty and her boyfriend Gary will spend time together Christmas night after the Vaughn clan leaves to go home. Her aunt will take care of her children.
She had made plans later to go to a movie, and we were supposed to babysit the children.
But Christmas Day turns to night, and Patty never shows up to drop off the kids as planned, nor does she call to cancel.
Wasn't surprised that I didn't hear from her, and just figured with everything going on and with all of her in-laws coming over, I just figured maybe everything was going great and they were playing with the kids and having a nice dinner.
We really didn't panic a lot until my daughter got the phone call the next day.
The day after Christmas, Patty's cousin Kathy and her mother are at home when the phone rings. It's a call that will change their family's lives forever.
JR called me on the evening of the 26th. When I answered the phone, he immediately asked me what time it was, then asked me if I'd seen Patty.
JR tells her no one has heard from Patty for over 24 hours.
He said that she had been gone since the previous day, that they had had a huge fight, that they had been fighting off and on all day Christmas Day, and that she got angry and got in her van and left. She had been gone for more than 24 hours, and we were just now finding out about it.
From what JR tells Kathy, he was not initially worried because he thought Patty had been with Gary. But then, JR breaks bewildering news to Kathy. He tells her Patty's minivan was found abandoned earlier that day, 17 miles from their home. The blue-gray Dodge Caravan was left on the side of the road with a flat tire. Patty's boss was heading back to work after lunch when he noticed the minivan sitting idly on the shoulder. He recognized the vehicle as Patty's and expected to find her at the office just 2 miles down the country road. But Patty wasn't there.
Nobody there had seen her. It was one of her bosses who had called JR and said, hey, Patty's van's sitting on the side of the road with a flat tire, and Patty didn't show up for work. They were concerned too, very concerned, because that was not like Patty to not come to work and not call.
He notified Patty's husband, Jerry Vaughn, who was, I guess, willing to meet him halfway to give him a set of keys to the van.
Patty's husband told her boss over the phone that he didn't have time to drive to where the minivan was found. He was on his way to file for divorce. His plan was to shock Patty into abandoning her relationship with Gary by presenting her with divorce papers. On his way to begin the proceedings, JR met Patty's boss to hand over the keys so the minivan could be moved.
Her employer just changed a flat tire, took it to the shop, and it was later found out that, nobody knew where Patty was.
Later that day, when Patty's cousin Kathy gets off the phone with JR, she shares the baffling news of Patty's departure with her mother. Right away, they are extremely concerned and start making frantic phone calls to track down Gary, the man Patty has been seeing.
He had not seen Patty since Christmas Eve night at our house. He was totally in a state of shock and immediately came to our house to offer to help in any way he could.
Whether Gary is being truthful or not, she is still missing.
There was obviously something wrong. You know, Patty was missing.
Kathy calls the Bexar County Sheriff's Office to file a missing persons report. The family fears Patty might have been abducted after asking the wrong person for help on the side of the road. But since she has not yet been missing for 72 hours, there is not much police can do.
She hadn't been missing long enough. You know, her being over the age of 18, she can come and go as she pleases.
After several calls, police finally agreed to take a missing persons report over the phone. Then, feeling helpless, Kathy and a friend head out into the dark of night to the place on the side of the road where Patty's van was left with a flat tire.
Patty would have fought like heck if somebody had grabbed her, so there's got to be a shirt sleeve or a shoe or, something somewhere, and so we just walked with the flashlight out there looking. Honestly, I kept thinking I was going to look in one of those drainage ditches and Patty was going to be in there. You know, maybe beat up, raped, I don't know, but she was going to be in there because it doesn't happen to your family.
Coming up, the search for Patty dramatically changes course after a startling discovery.
Somebody intentionally let the air out of that tire.
24 hours after Patty Vaughn's family sees her alive and well at a get-together on Christmas Eve, the 32-year-old mother is nowhere to be found. Jerry Ray Vaughn, Patty's estranged husband, was the last known person to see her on Christmas Day. He says she stormed out of the house after a volatile day of arguing. But Patty's extended family senses something is deeply wrong. They don't believe she would have left her 3 young children and not returned home.
These 3 children are her life, and she's gonna get mad enough to walk out and leave them? Not in a million years.
Jean, Patty's aunt, starts to make calls to see if anyone has heard from Patty since Christmas. She begins with Patty's immediate family living in Georgia and finds that Patty's youngest sister did indeed talk to her on Christmas Day.
I called her Christmas. It was probably about 10:30 Texas time.
JR answered the phone. Jeannie wished him a Merry Christmas, told him she loved him, and asked to speak to her sister, Patty.
He put Patty on the phone, and I could tell she had been crying, and she tried to tell me she had a cold. But I knew, I knew the difference, so I let it go.
Jeannie had formerly lived with Patty and JR and was very close to her sister's family.
He was a really nice guy. We had a good relationship. He was more of a brother than an in-law. I asked him to give me away at my wedding when I grew up, so.
But Jeannie was aware that Patty and JR's separation had not been easy. So when she heard the heaviness in her sister's voice on Christmas Day, she couldn't help but worry.
She assured me once again before we got off the phone that everything was fine, and that was the last time I talked to her.
That call only makes her family more concerned and desperate for answers. 2 days later, Patty's cousins, Barb and Kathy, head out to Quinney Electric, Patty's employer, where the minivan has been sitting since the previous day. But when the sisters inspect what is believed to be a blown-out tire, what they find changes the game in the search for their cousin.
Had Patty been driving to work down that road and gotten a blowout or a flat tire, there would have been some damage to the tire and to the rim. It was perfect. It looks like it went flat right where it sat.
To test their theory, the tire is reinflated. As they suspect, it holds air. Patty's cousin Kathy once again calls the police, who now agree to open an investigation before the 72-hour period passes. Investigator Adrian Ramirez, at the time an evidence technician, is one of the first to examine the car back in 1996.
The tire didn't appear to have any damage to it. It didn't have any kind of tearing on it. It didn't have any kind of markings on it, which led us to believe somebody intentionally let the air out of that tire.
It does not take long for the CSI team to conclude what they have on their hands is much more than a woman who voluntarily left her family.
The van was extremely clean, which caught our attention.
Considering the vehicle carts around 3 children under the age of 10, this cleanliness is a red flag.
The interior of the van appeared to be washed out, some type of detergent or water. There was water in the actual van itself. It was a colored, stained water. Samples were taken from all through the van.
Police suspect the muddied water in the van is tainted with blood, but they can't be sure. They submit samples for testing to the Bexar County Forensics Lab. Next, the investigators dust for fingerprints. The vehicle seems to have been wiped clean, but they eventually recover a single set of prints that are not Patty's. After checking local and national records, investigators cannot determine whom they belong to. While the Bexar County Police Department is involved in processing Patty's van, Jean, Kathy, and Barb are working non-stop to mobilize a search team. Patty's husband stays home to mind the children.
The first day, we had, I think, over 500 volunteers just through the local media.
By the end of the day on Friday, December 27th, hundreds of people have gathered at the location where Patty's van was found. Barb and her mother, Jean, head over to Patty's house to obtain scent articles for the search dogs. While there, Patty's cousin Barb has a brief encounter with Patty's 9-year-old daughter.
She ran out and hugged me, and she was very upset, and I said, "It's okay, we'll find your mommy."
As the clock ticks, Barb and Jean know the chances of Patty being found alive are fading fast. They head back to the search headquarters to deliver the scent articles.
They had some dogs that had a scent towards a pond in the area where her van was found.
The handler follows her dog Vip to a small stock pond that's 50 feet wide and 3 feet deep. It's a place well hidden off the country road. Could someone have disposed of Patty's body here after dumping her car? The search begins at the pond.
They had the Bexar County dive team and other assistants from different organizations. Any search was conducted in the pond area.
We did drag the pond. There was nothing there.
Although the pond yields no new evidence, the search teams expand their hunt to the surrounding areas. No stone is left unturned.
Complete strangers came to help our family. I can't tell you how many trash cans we jumped in. Dump sites, quarries, places that you just would never think you would have to look for somebody that you care about.
On Sunday, December 29th, the official search for the missing mother of 3 ends. Coming up, a routine search of the Vaughn residence reveals a harrowing clue.
It was hard not to think that something horrible had happened in that house.
When Patty Vaughn's minivan is found with a flat tire on the side of the road, almost 24 hours after she is last seen, her family believes Patty might have been abducted. But it quickly becomes clear that the air was deliberately let out of the tire, and there appear to be traces of blood in the van. A 3-day search for the missing woman has turned up nothing. Investigators move quickly to question anyone in Patty's life who could have had motive to make her disappear.
In a case like this, you have to go in with an open mind. We strongly believe this was somebody that Patty knew, that Patty is very close to.
Investigators know that there are 2 very important men in Patty's life: JR, her estranged husband, and Gary, Patty's former boyfriend, who is now back in her life. They start by questioning Gary. Police learn that Gary drove by Patty's house the day she went missing, when they weren't supposed to see each other until later that night.
He and his sister had been out driving for whatever reason, and he asked his sister if they could drive by Patty's house.
According to Patty's aunt, Gary says that he saw Patty's minivan and JR's truck in the driveway. The kids were out playing in the front yard. Is it possible that seeing the Vaughn family together on Christmas made him jealous? Patty's family says there is no way that Gary could be involved in Patty's disappearance.
We heard rumors that Patty had decided to reconcile with JR, and Gary couldn't stand that, so he had decided to do away with her. Just crazy scenarios. The fact that he was with his entire family all day Christmas and into the night, way after the hour that Patty supposedly left in her van, you know, kind of blows a hole in that theory.
The first person that helped us look for her was Gary. He volunteered to the police, please give me a lie detector test. He was with us on almost every search. He helped pass out flyers. He was a big part of that.
Gary denies having a part in Patty's disappearance. He passes a polygraph and gives no reason for police to believe he is a suspect. But because of the nature of his relationship to Patty, it is impossible to rule him out entirely. His eventual death in a tragic car accident will keep police wondering.
Gary, like anybody else, has always been considered a person of interest.
As investigators dig deeper into Gary and Patty's relationship, they look into an incident that happened just 2 weeks before Patty went missing. It makes them concerned that more people, other than just JR or Gary, may have been upset with Patty Vaughn at the time of her disappearance.
A member of their church out in Lavernia had seen Patty having lunch with Gary at a Dairy Queen, a very romantic place to have lunch, and went back and reported to the minister at the church that Patty was a married woman and he didn't think it was proper for a married woman to be having lunch with a man other than her husband.
Later that week, while rehearsing at church with her Christian folk singing group, Patty is publicly scorned because of her alleged infidelities.
The minister of the church called Patty in at choir practice one evening in front of all of the members and told her that she did not deserve to represent the church as a member of the singing group. That started a snowball in the community.
She had nothing to hide. She didn't think she did, you know, until the church ostracized her like they did.
There was a lot of division from what we understand. Some opinion was that this friend that she had was not a good idea because she was still technically married. There's other opinion to where, well, they were already in the midst of a separation and gonna get divorced. There were a lot of personal attacks on Patty, and that's something she had to struggle with.
While hundreds of volunteers continue to flock to the fields searching for any sign of Patty, investigators are honing in on the Vaughn residence, the last place Patty was seen alive. The Bexar County Sheriff's Department Crime Scene Unit pays Jerry Ray Vaughn a visit later that day.
Jerry gave us consent to process the residence. Everything seemed to be normal. We then examined different areas of the interior of the residence.
The evidence technicians make their way through the Vaughn's home to search Patty and JR's bedroom. According to JR, Patty spent a good portion of the afternoon on Christmas Day in the bedroom, upset. The emotional upheaval started early on Christmas morning, soon after JR arrived. He says the fighting between him and his wife began over Patty's new relationship with her old boyfriend and how it was spilling over into their family life.
He felt that it was wrong that his children be subjected to that and they weren't even divorced.
As the fighting between JR and Patty escalated, it became increasingly clear that hosting the Vaughn family for Christmas was not the best idea. When JR's sister Marilyn and her son showed up for dinner, JR told them Patty wasn't feeling well and asked them to take the children over to his younger sister's house for Christmas dinner. When the children left with their aunt, Patty and JR remained in the house alone.
We believe that Patty and Jerry Vaughn needed some time to talk, and they're probably going to work on some things.
But according to JR, this was when the arguing turned into an all-out war, culminating with divorce threats.
He had threatened her that with what he had on her, not only could he take back control of his house, he could take his children too, and she would never see them again.
According to JR, his goal was to show Patty he meant business and that it was high time to stop exhibiting inappropriate behavior around their children.
Supposedly, she grabbed her purse and her keys and left. And nobody has seen any of those items.
There are no witnesses that have come forward that can tell us they saw Patty leave that residence.
JR believes Patty became the victim of foul play after she left the house. 4 days later, the CSI team enters Patty and JR's bedroom, one of the last places Patty was seen before she vanished. They notice several stained indentations in the linoleum floor and begin their testing with luminol, a chemical used to indicate the possible presence of blood. Relegated to a neighbor's yard, Patty's anxious family members look on from afar.
We knew that they were going to be doing the luminol test, and we wanted to be right there in case they found anything.
But according to police, JR's sister Marilyn is inside the house and interrupts the investigation with a barrage of questions.
That particular time when we first processed the residence, there was some type of interference with the sister. And she's being protective of her brother.
While one officer leads Marilyn out of the bedroom, the other continues the luminol testing. What he finds could be proof that something violent happened there. There are visible positive results in the master bedroom, closet, and bathroom. But knowing that luminol also detects cleaning detergents, it is impossible to say if the reaction is from blood or bleach.
Luminol not only reacts to blood, it also reacts to copper and other chemicals, such as bleach. So it is strictly a tool to help you search for any kind of biological evidence.
Then, according to police, further disruptions from JR's sister while examining the positive results in the bathroom caused them to leave. The next day, when the search continues, the evidence technicians return to the areas where the luminol test was positive. They then follow a trail on the bedroom floor to uncover a few drops of blood. A bucket and mop in the garage also test positive under luminol.
Some blood evidence had been found behind a baseboard of the master bedroom. It was hard not to think that something horrible had happened in that house.
But investigators cannot be sure. They must now prove the blood found in the van and in the house is in fact Patty's blood. And if it is, with only a small amount of blood discovered, it will be hard to prove a crime was committed in the Vaughn's home.
What makes it tough here also is that unless there is an abundance amount of blood at a crime scene, it doesn't give you the amount you need to consider a person deceased.
Patty's family isn't as cautious in its assessment of the evidence against JR.
The house was never cordoned off as a crime scene. When they found the blood in the home and the blood in the van and she was missing, they allowed JR and his sister Marilyn to be in the home while they searched. And there's something not right there.
Coming up, suspicions arise when tips flood in about one of JR's construction sites.
Some workers were pouring concrete and they wanted us to go away.
Young Texan mother Patty Vaughn has been missing 4 days, and police have probable cause to call it homicide. Blood found both in her minivan and behind a baseboard in her bedroom is a strong indicator to investigators that Patty has met a violent end. But just as the investigation into Patty Vaughn's disappearance seems to be heating up, there is a jurisdictional issue. Although the abandoned van was in Bexar County, the Vaughn house is not. Just weeks after Patty goes missing, former detective for the Wilson County Sheriff's Department, John Martinez, is handed the case. After reviewing the details of the investigation, he asks to speak to J.R. Vaughn.
The interview took approximately 4 hours. It was a roller coaster interview, a lot of discrepancies, a lot of voids. At the time of the interview, I was not convinced with any of Mr. Vaughn's answers.
It is becoming apparent to JR that people are beginning to point the finger at him as the reason why his wife is missing. He says he has no clue why there was blood in the van, since whatever happened to Patty transpired after she left the house Christmas night. As for the blood in the bedroom, he insists he has nothing to hide and has no idea where it came from.
Shortly thereafter, he retained an attorney and was advised never to give another statement. A polygraph was offered to him, which he declined.
Knowing he might be the only surviving parent, JR says he feels he must protect himself at all costs.
I would say that Jerry Vaughn is one of our main persons of interest. It would have to take a serious amount of explaining as to questions we have regarding the incident on Christmas Day.
JR hasn't had to explain anything. JR's made all the rules.
There has been no explanation as to why the van was cleaned out and or the presence of blood at both scenes.
Although most people connected to the case believe that tests will soon verify the presence of Patty's blood, results are still pending. In the meantime, without any hard evidence against JR, police are unable to name him a suspect. But as the investigation continues, they receive information that makes them suspicious. 2 days before Patty goes missing, he makes plans to vacate his apartment. In a letter dated December 23rd, JR asks his landlord to break his lease. Although he tells police it was because the area felt unsafe, the timing of the letter makes them question his actions.
He moved back in the day Patty disappeared, and 3 days later her voice was changed on the voicemail, and his clothes were in the closet.
JR says his move back into the family home on December 25th was not planned. The heated fight between him and his wife pushed him to the limit. He told her to get out.
Supposedly, after she stormed out after a heated argument on Christmas night, he called a locksmith to change the locks.
JR was standing his ground, and he was going to take back what was his, which was his home and his children.
More than 3 months after Patty disappeared, police finally have the test results confirming that the blood found both in the van and the house has indeed been identified as Patty Vaughn's. But that is still not enough for an indictment.
There's not a body. There's no evidence that connects the two. And it's very hard to present that to a grand jury and try to make a case.
Nonetheless, JR's increasingly uncooperative behavior keeps family and investigators acutely alert.
We were not allowed back in the home, and we were allowed to see the children again.
The children were not allowed to be questioned, whether it be at the school or whether it be at the church. Their father made it a point when they attended Bible studies that he was there. As an investigator, it sends a red flag.
But JR says that police had not asked to question the children, and he has cut off contact with certain members of Patty's family because he is aware they think he might have harmed Patty.
He would not leave the house. He would not help us on the searches.
JR was getting members from the search parties to call him and give him updates, where you're searching, how long you're gonna be there, where you searching tomorrow.
You would think that a person would be more involved in a search. However, everybody reacts different. Some will help, some will decide to stay away and let the authorities do it.
According to JR, he was advised by a police officer to stay away from the searches. If anything tied to Patty was found, he would not want his DNA anywhere near the crime scene. As the investigation continues, police must keep an open mind. They continue to question people Patty knew and chase down every possible lead, which brings them back to the Vaughn's property.
One of the leads that we received was that the body could be in a septic tank on the property. We obtained a search warrant, evidentiary search warrant for the property. And after searching, it was inconclusive. We searched and talked to neighbors and so forth. No one heard anything, no one saw anything.
But then, weeks after Patty disappears, one tip stands out among the rest. A call has come in referencing an elementary school that was being built around the Christmas holidays, 45 miles from Livernia, in Pleasanton. The supervisor of the construction site was J.R. Vaughn.
Our office received information that Mr. Vaughn was a contractor, and they felt suspicious of some work that was being conducted right around the same time frame that this missing persons report came through.
We had found out where JR's job site was, and when we got there, there were some workers that were hired by JR that were pouring concrete, and they wanted us to go away.
We've talked to a couple of employees who had said that JR had done something that was totally out of character for him, and said that he would oversee the concrete trucks in certain areas pouring the concrete.
The information was that Ms. Vaughn might be in a cement slab because they found it odd that they were pouring cement at a certain time frame, certain day.
JR denies these claims and says the pour dates had been scheduled well in advance and executed as planned. Close to 4 months after Patty's family finds out about the school construction site, investigators bring in the Texas Rangers and a team from Dallas to use ground-penetrating radar. They check for any anomalies in the concrete, and they find them.
We bored some holes in cement, had a cadaver dog out there, and at the time, the cadaver dog did not alert on any suspicious odors. So that kind of turned out at the time as an inconclusive search.
Patty's family is not convinced the search was done thoroughly. They believe there's a good chance Patty's body could still be there.
You're not going to destroy a multi-million-dollar project that the county and the citizens paid for, no matter how many bodies might be buried here.
Following the Pleasanton school search, the case of the missing mother goes cold. Eight years after Patty goes missing, JR files for her death certificate. JR says he had Patty pronounced deceased because by that time he was legally permitted to do so. But when Patty's family finds out, they are devastated and file a wrongful death suit against JR. At stake is the payout from Patty's life insurance policy. On December 8, 2005, the case is resolved. The life insurance money goes to Patty's children, and all claims against JR are denied. This defeat does not stop Patty's family from looking for her. They have continued to follow every lead on their own dime.
Our last big search, we dug up a huge portion of a field that's soon to be used as a cemetery plot. The tip was the land had been leased by the construction company that Jared was working for to dump excess like concrete and trash.
Sooner or later, we'll find her, we'll find out what happened to her. We won't stop until we do, though.
Detective Adrian Ramirez and his partner have the same zeal for solving Patty's disappearance. Now cold case homicide detectives, the duo inherited the case in 2007 when it was returned to Bexar County from Wilson County.
We are going to keep working. We will continue for the sake of Patty's children and her loved ones. We are going to solve this case.
Meanwhile, J.R. Vaughn says that by concentrating on him as Patty's killer, the investigation into his wife's disappearance has taken a wrong turn from the beginning, allowing the real killer to have gotten away with murder. Despite the rift that Patty's disappearance has caused, J.R. and her family can agree on one truth. They all deserve to know why Patty was taken from them that fateful Christmas day.
We may never have the answers, but it won't be for lack of us trying. Because Patty deserved so much more. She was such a good person, such a good mother, such a good niece, cousin, sister, friend.
Patty was the one that kept everybody together. She just wanted to make everybody happy, you know? She really did.
She had so much light in her, and she had so much to give. And I just can't imagine what her life would have become had she been allowed to live it.
Tim Carney disappeared on September 28, 2004. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Tim Carney's last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to him. 25-year-old Tim Carney belongs to a religious group that worries his family.
I think they were telling him, we're your family now. You don't need your family. We're your family.
Suddenly, he vanishes on his way to morning prayers, leaving his family searching for clues.
I always wonder if he was trying to warn us about something that was happening.
The Carneys suspect Tim's religious devotion may have played a role in his disappearance.
He would never go this long without calling somebody in our family and saying, I'm okay.
Just when investigators believe Tim may be out of reach, witnesses think they have spotted him.
He seemed very tense and very nervous.
Will detectives be able to find him before it's too late?
If he had to live on the streets, I just don't see him surviving.
25-year-old Tim Carney has devoted himself to his religious life. For the past 5 years, he's been a member of a small church in New Jersey. Every morning, Tim has the same routine. Before starting his day at the New Jersey Unemployment Office, he wakes up at 5 a.m. and goes to the church's 7 a.m. prayer meeting.
He came home one weekend and said that he had joined a church, and we were glad. We grew up in church, so we thought that was good.
We stressed the fact that religion was an important part of our lives. We believe in God. We went to church every Sunday. I taught Sunday school. Tim was in my class as well as his sisters. So we were happy that religion was still a part of his life.
Tim joins the Gospel Outreach Church, led by Pastor Jim Lethbridge, and soon has a new circle of friends. His sister Megan would come to question the group's appeal.
I think Tim joined Gospel Outreach because they posed themselves as a Christian study group, people that were on his wavelength, you know, really focused on academics.
He didn't say too much, just that he was going to church, and we were just happy to hear that, so we left it at that.
Tim surrounds himself primarily with Gospel Outreach members and has been living with fellow congregants since college.
He felt very comfortable there. He felt wanted and loved, and he felt at home.
While Tim had excelled in academics growing up, his bookish nature made it difficult for him to make friends when he was younger.
He was the smart kid, so people shy away from smart kids. He would be talking to adults at 12 years old because nobody else understood him. He was made fun of a lot. He just wanted to feel like he belonged to something, a group.
It was hard. It was very hard because we know he's got a great sense of humor. He's a great kid. They just got to get to know him.
Tim's passion for books eventually inspired him to write his own stories.
Tim started writing at a young age. Because he loved reading so much, it was just natural for him to just try to create his own adventures in writing.
Tim had particularly enjoyed mysteries.
His favorite was Edgar Allan Poe, and he liked to write with the surprise endings. In his briefcase, he had writing. He was writing a book.
Tim was pretty secretive with his writings. Once he felt like something was perfect, then he would share it. But before then, he was pretty protective of his writings. And he would keep them in like a briefcase.
Tim could never have known then that his own life would one day become the center of a troubling mystery. On September 28, 2004, an average Tuesday, Tim's day begins as usual. According to his roommate Roy, also a member of Gospel Outreach, Tim wakes at 5 a.m. to go to the 7 a.m. prayer meeting. But on this day, Tim's morning unfolds differently from his normal routine. his fellow church members report that Tim never arrives at morning prayers. Even before his disappearance, Tim's family is uncomfortable with the way Tim makes church activities the central focus of his life.
Whereas before he would come down and join us for church on Sunday as a family, now if he did come down, he had to leave right away to get back to the group. It was more about, you know, I got to get to Bible study, or I have to get to men's group, or I have to get to choir. It was mandatory for him to attend.
Family members worry that Tim's religious commitment is pulling him away from them.
Well, there was a big change in Tim. He didn't come around as often. He was very secretive. He wouldn't communicate with us. And that was tough, because before that, we always had a good communication.
It was just really out of character for him, just not like him to miss the family function or to not call. And it was happening more and more frequently. I didn't like what was happening. I didn't like that he couldn't be with us.
Every time he had to go somewhere, he couldn't go by himself. When my sister was in the hospital, he would come down to see her, but he always had somebody else with him. And they made a statement once where it's like, well, we wanted to make sure there was a real Aunt Kathleen.
Phyllis Carney sensed a pressure on Tim to distance himself from his family.
I think they don't want you to talk to anybody else outside the group, because they always said, well, don't tell anybody about us because they won't understand.
Rick Ross is consulted nationwide by families and law enforcement. He has made a career studying religious groups, including gospel outreach and Pastor Lethbridge.
In my experience, the families that have loved ones in gospel outreach have very limited communication. When a group isolates members, they do that in order to create a kind of bubble. If they can control everything that goes into the mind, they can control the mind itself. So by isolating people from family members, they create an environment in where what the group wants them to think and feel is constantly being reinforced.
I think they were telling them, we're your family now. You don't need your family. We're your family. Well, churches bring people together. They don't tear them apart.
Tim's family notices that his devotion to gospel outreach and to the teachings of Pastor Lethbridge seems to have a physical effect.
He changed his appearance. He always had short hair in college. And one summer when he came home, he had long hair and he had a ponytail. We didn't think much of it. Actually, it looked good on him. But then one Sunday, we went and sat in on a church service. And lo and behold, the minister happens to have long hair and a ponytail. And so do several other male members of the group.
But then one day he came home with short hair and surprised me. Then we saw Lethbridge right after that, and Lethbridge had cut his hair.
Gradually, Tim's parents begin to see gospel outreach as very different from the kind of church in which the Carneys had grown up.
We had gotten a phone call from parents who have a son in the group also. And they had some concerns about the church and they wanted to talk to us about it. That's when everything kind of fell into place. Things that we joked about, we thought was kind of funny, but once we started talking to these people, it wasn't funny anymore. It was serious. We know he's a smart boy. We didn't think he'd be sucked into a group that would influence him like they did.
In 2003, the year before Tim disappears, his ties to gospel outreach grow even stronger when he begins seeing a woman who is also a member of the congregation.
He came home and said he was courting. That's the word they used. I said, well, what kind of word is courting? I wasn't, you know, they don't use that word anymore. That's such an old-fashioned term that was a little strange too, I thought.
Tim's family was bewildered by his dating rituals.
They could sit next to one another, but they couldn't hold hands. If they wanted to hold hands, they had to hold a fork. She held the fork halfway, and then he would grab a fork the rest of the way. And that was their way of being with one another. They couldn't touch.
At Tim's college graduation party, his sister Megan noticed that some members of Gospel Outreach seemed to have more conservative customs than other couples she knew.
There was 3 people watching TV, and the couple that was supposed to have been together weren't sitting next to each other on the couch. There was somebody in between them. It seemed like none of the girls could ever be alone with their significant others. There always had to be like a person watching to make sure that they were following the rules.
When his parents bring up what they perceive as the church's strict doctrines, it becomes a source of tension in the family.
We try to avoid talking about the church because then that only goes into an argument, and then we start yelling at one another.
He was constantly trying to prove to us that it was a legitimate group, or it was a good group, or that there was nothing wrong, that everything was fine and happy. I think part of that is that he wouldn't want my mother or my father to worry. But part of that is almost as if maybe deep down he knew that some of the things that they were doing weren't how we were raised or how we grew up.
All the Carneys knew of Gospel Outreach was what they heard from Tim, that it was a Christian fellowship devoted to studying the Bible. Despite his family's concerns about the strict lifestyle that Gospel Outreach seems to require, Phyllis Carney sees Tim's relationship having a positive impact on her son.
Oh, he seemed very happy. He really did. He seemed very, very happy with her. I mean, he brought her to the family Christmas party. If he's happy, then you're happy.
But about 7 months after Tim's relationship begins, the Carneys learned some disappointing news.
One day he just came and said they had broken up, and that's all he would say. Looked like he was upset about it, but he wouldn't talk about it. And that was it.
On Saturday, September 25th, 2004, 5 months after Tim's breakup, he and his sisters Erin and Megan have dinner at their childhood home to celebrate their parents' anniversary.
We just had a nice night, family-wise. We didn't talk about the church at all.
He didn't leave early. He stayed, and he had dinner with us, and we watched a movie after, and it was like the old Tim. Being in the moment, just being with the family, just having a good time.
The last thing he did was hug me and say, "Mom, I love you." And then he left and went home.
The next day, Sunday, Megan gets together with Tim, but their time is cut short.
We were supposed to go to lunch, but I canceled because I wasn't in a good mood.
Megan sees a potential clue she may have missed, looking back on that day.
He was trying hard to convince me to go out to eat, trying to, get together, and I didn't. I didn't go. And it feels awful. I hate so much that I wasn't in a good mood. He wasn't always so insistent to meet for lunch. Like, if we get together, we get together. If we don't, we'll just reschedule, no big deal. But I always wonder if he was trying to tell me something, or maybe warn us about something that was happening that we didn't know about. I always wonder about that.
Tim's request to meet for lunch would echo in Megan's mind. Just 2 days later, on Tuesday, September 28th, Tim never shows up at morning prayers and disappears. Coming up, when police find a clue, Tim's family fears the worst.
We thought foul play.
On Saturday, September 25th, 3 days before he disappears, 25-year-old Tim Carney spends the evening with his family at his parents' home in Edison, New Jersey. As he leaves, Tim hugs his mom goodbye and says he'll see her next week. The following Tuesday, September 28th, Tim gets up at 5 a.m. as usual to go to the Gospel Outreach 7 a.m. morning prayers. But Tim never appears. By 9 a.m., when Tim doesn't show up at the unemployment office where he works as a claims examiner, his coworkers assume Tim is just late. According to his colleagues, this had become common, especially since his breakup. Then, just after 9 a.m., Tim calls his supervisor to say he'll be late. But by 10 a.m., Tim hasn't arrived. Calls to his home and cell phones only reach his voicemail. The next day, the Carneys get a call every parent dreads.
His roommate Roy called and wanted to know if Tim was at our house because he didn't come home that night. Well, no, he's not here.
We called his cell phone and it just rang. No one picked up.
Alarmed, Phyllis and Ed Carney file a missing persons report with the police in Butler, New Jersey, where Tim lives. When detectives search his home, they find no indication that Tim was leaving for longer than just a normal workday. Detective Colleen Pascal is on the team investigating Tim's case.
Nothing was taken out of his home of importance. If he, again, intended to go away for long, he did not take any of his belongings. His room was intact. His clothes were still there.
Police discover Tim took something with him that at the time seemed normal for him to bring to work, along with his wallet, keys, and cell phone.
We understand that he took the silver briefcase. It's believed that there were writings in that briefcase, which is something that he always carries.
According to investigators, after Tim calls his supervisor around 9 that morning, all outbound activity from his cell phone stops. On Wednesday, September 29th, the day after Tim vanishes, a clue appears.
We received information that somebody had found a wallet.
A patron at the Lyndhurst Diner spots Tim's wallet in the eatery's parking lot. The restaurant is on Route 23, halfway between Tim's apartment and his office. Police learn from the diner's employees that someone matching Tim's description used to eat breakfast there often. Unfortunately, by the time police received the tip about Tim's wallet, it has already been sitting at the diner for several days.
When the wallet was found, they called the phone number that was in his wallet, and his roommate obtained the message, but the message didn't get to the police that day. The police didn't find out about the wallet for quite some time. They could have questioned people a lot sooner instead of quite a few days after.
Police canvass the area around the diner, but find no leads. The wallet still contains Tim's credit cards, leading police to believe this was not a robbery. What's missing also doesn't suggest foul play to Al Schumann, a private investigator hired by the Carney family 6 months after Tim disappears.
Curiously, what was missing from the wallet was nothing except his driver's license and his college identification card.
Since nothing valuable is missing from Tim's wallet, investigators now reason that he may have left it there himself. If so, they need to find out why. Because Tim is an adult, his case centers on one concern. Did he vanish of his own free will, or has he been abducted?
If he chose to be missing on his own, if he just left and did not want to be found, then that in itself is not a crime. He's not a child. He doesn't have to report to his parents where he is.
Three days after Tim vanishes, there's a new development. In Newark, about 35 miles from Tim's home, construction workers discover an abandoned car. When police respond to the scene, they determine that the car belongs to Tim Carney.
When they found this car, we thought foul play. So we were very worried at this point that something terrible had happened to Tim, because they thought, well, maybe they found his body there also. And they said, no, it's just a car. There's no sign of Tim.
Once again, the investigation takes an unfortunate turn. By the time police get the call, it has been almost a week that Tim's car has been at the construction site.
That's where the city of Newark and the city of Elizabeth meet. No one was notified right away about the car because each township felt it was the other township's issue. So it had gone quite a few days without anybody contacting the police regarding it to even notice that, wow, that car belonged to somebody who was declared missing.
The construction site sits on a dirt road off the main highway. It's virtually unreachable by foot.
We didn't know what to think because, like, well, if his car's there, then how did he get out of the spot? It's in a remote spot. It was very far to walk to anywhere.
Investigators find little that indicates what may have happened to him.
It had been raining, and so any clues that there were there, whether it's footprints or whatever, were washed away.
No forensics other than his was retained from the vehicle. There was no sign of struggle. No evidence led any of the investigator officers to believe that there was foul play. It appears that the vehicle was just abandoned.
But detectives do notice one thing notably missing from Tim's car.
He always had this briefcase with him, and they didn't find it.
Since police find no sign of foul play from Tim's wallet or car, and the briefcase that had always been by his side is now missing, detectives believe that Tim may have disappeared intentionally. The discovery of Tim's car gives Tim's loved ones some hope, while also raising some unsettling questions.
Why would he ditch the car? I mean, all kinds of thoughts go through your head. It's like, did he get hurt? Did he walk somewhere? What's the next step? Where do you go? Where should we go look? Any bit of hope, you go running to it. You have hope that you'll find him.
Even though the car itself doesn't provide any leads, investigators do find one important clue. The construction site is right by Newark International Airport. Coming up, Tim's family suspects he may be in trouble.
He would never go this long without calling somebody and saying, I'm okay.
Mysterious signs of 25-year-old Tim Carney have been turning up after he disappears on Saturday, September 28, 2004. Tim's wallet is spotted in a parking lot the next day. Then, police find his car in a remote location about 35 miles from his home. There are no signs of foul play, but they do notice that his briefcase is missing. His briefcase, containing his writing, was the one item Tim was known to always keep with him. Since Tim's car is abandoned near Newark International Airport, police reason he may have boarded a flight. Tim's father, Ed Carney, believes that his son could have headed to Canada.
We thought he might have gone to Canada because he knows people in Canada. He speaks French fluently. He had 7 years of it in school.
At the time of Tim's disappearance, a driver's license was sufficient travel documentation for U.S. citizens to enter Canada. Since Tim's driver's license was missing from his wallet, it's possible he could have crossed the border. Phyllis Carney believes her son may have been looking for a way out of what they saw as the restrictive life he led as a member of the Gospel Outreach Church.
If Tim was going to leave the church, I don't think he would have told us. And so I think he might have thought in order to leave the church, this was the way to do it. The pressure might have just gotten to him.
Initially, Tim's family wants to believe their only son will soon return.
We thought maybe he's got to clear his head and then we'll see him again.
But as the days stretch on, the Carneys also find something troubling in Tim's disappearance. Even if he left of his own free will, they wonder if something may have happened to him.
I just know my brother enough to know that he would never do this to my parents. I mean, we're a pretty close family. He would never go this long without calling somebody in our family and saying, I'm okay.
Ed Carney speaks to Pastor Jim Lethbridge soon after Tim goes missing. Just days later, members of his church and Lethbridge leave for a weekend retreat.
And he told me when they come back, he'll give me the full support of him and the church and looking for Tim. I thought it was odd that they all decided to go away for a weekend and not help me find Tim.
Rick Ross has seen this response to a disappearance with other religious groups.
When there's a group and it's very small, like the Lethbridge group, which has just a handful of members really, and someone important like Tim Carney leaves, who everyone regarded as at one time a loyal and devoted member, it creates doubts in the group. So in order to get a handle on that, a leader may sequester the group and go into a kind of retreat where he or she can then spin the departure of the valued group member for damage control.
Once Gospel Outreach members return from the retreat, the Carneys hope for their support in the search effort.
I specifically called Pastor Lethbridge to request his assistance, and he just was unavailable. He couldn't be bothered.
They might have known if he was depressed. He was with them more than he was with us. Any one of them could have helped us, but nobody talked to us, nobody called. And that's more disappointing than anything, that nobody wanted to help us.
After private investigator Al Schumann also reaches out to gospel outreach members, he says he gets minimal cooperation.
The church members were reluctant to speak. As a matter of fact, they were very curt and abrupt in response.
Then, Ed and Phyllis Carney speak to other parents of gospel outreach members. They report learning that Tim's congregation has a very different understanding of his disappearance.
And then we're shocked to find out that they're told that Tim's okay.
According to the Carneys, Jim Lethbridge has given his congregation a disturbing account of Tim's disappearance, that Tim is not missing at all, and that his parents know his whereabouts.
He told them we kidnapped our own son.
He just feels that my parents have done something with him and that, you know, we're hiding him. We're certainly not hiding him. We're trying to bring him home.
Still pursuing the theory that Tim might have boarded a plane, investigators examine travel manifests in the hope of finding Tim's name on a flight out of Newark. Their search comes up empty, as do Al Schumann's inquiries with Canadian authorities.
I contacted the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. They said that at that point, border patrols had tightened to the point where they were almost certain that he could not have gone into Canada from the United States without being detected.
But investigators realize that Tim could have found a way to make himself nearly invisible to anyone trying to track him. The search for Tim Carney might be targeting the wrong person.
He could have assumed a new identity due to his employment.
Tim's position at the state unemployment office put dozens of Social Security numbers within his reach, giving him the ability to create an entirely new identity. If Tim did assume another identity, it would be virtually impossible to track him among the thousands of passengers who travel daily through Newark Airport. Phyllis Carney suspects that with a new identity, Tim could easily avoid detection.
He's a very average-looking guy. I mean, he doesn't have blue hair.
Is it possible that Tim, the amateur mystery writer, could have created the ultimate whodunit?
It's like it's a mystery novel without the ending.
Coming up, Tim may be closer to home than his family realizes. 25-year-old Tim Carney has gone missing. According to his family, he may have wanted to escape his life in the Gospel Outreach Church, a congregation the Carneys saw as isolating and controlling. Tim's family hears that Gospel Outreach pastor Jim Lethbridge has told his members that Tim has not disappeared at all, and that his parents know where he is. Since Tim had access to countless Social Security numbers through his job at the unemployment office, investigators consider the possibility that he could be traveling under a different identity. Police get a lead that heats up the local search again. Since his disappearance, investigators have been monitoring Tim's bank account and credit cards. For 3 days, the accounts have shown no activity. But suddenly, on the 4th day after Tim goes missing, bank surveillance images reveal a man accessing Tim's checking account.
On October 2nd, there was an image taken of a male party withdrawing money from his account. He's wearing a baseball cap, and the baseball cap was pulled down very low over his eyes so that you could not see who the individual was. Clearly, the individual is trying to hide themselves from the camera.
The bank is located about 7 miles from the construction site where Tim's car is found abandoned, and about 24 miles from his usual branch. The man in the surveillance image hands the teller a withdrawal slip in the amount of $1,000, just $100 short of the entire balance in Tim's account. When police interview the bank teller, she reports a curious observation. The person making the transaction had a red, splotchy rash all over his hands.
I knew it was him. He had psoriasis starting in high school. I could tell it was him. I could tell it by his hand.
According to his parents, Tim's psoriasis tended to flare up at specific times.
Stress plays a role in it, so that would be something that would tell us that it was Tim.
Detectives showed the bank teller photos of Tim, and she identifies him as the man who made the withdrawal. Upon inspecting the withdrawal slip, police discovered that it includes Tim's driver's license number as proof of ID. The evidence confirms investigators' belief that it was Tim making the transaction. When authorities checked the bank's surveillance images, there is nothing that suggests Tim was being forced to make the withdrawal.
The individual who was there did not appear to be under duress.
But Tim's sister Megan isn't convinced that the man believed to be Tim was acting alone.
There was no parking lot shots to see if he was by himself or with somebody else.
Without his car, it would have taken Tim over 2 hours to walk from the construction site near Newark Airport to the bank. Investigators believe someone may be driving him around. But the question remains, even if Tim is with someone, is he in trouble? Authorities examined Tim's financial history for clues to his disappearance. What they find surprises even those closest to him. Tim had approximately $20,000 in credit card debt, a huge sum for anyone, particularly a civil servant making around $35,000 per year.
He did not have a lavish lifestyle. He lived in a local apartment complex. He drove a basic car.
Oh, we figured he was doing okay. He's got a decent job. He's making a living. He was making ends meet.
Tim was the last person his family would expect to be in debt.
My brother was always good at saving. If he wanted a computer, my parents wouldn't buy it for him. He was always really good about saving to get whatever he wanted. He always had money. He always had some type of emergency fund.
But when authorities investigate his work life, they learn that Tim often borrowed money from his coworkers.
Sometimes he didn't even have the 70 cents tolls to go home with. You know, he'd have to borrow that. He'd borrow money for lunch.
Tim's family suspects that his involvement with gospel outreach may have been a factor in Tim's large debt.
When he joined Gospel Outreach, we started to notice that he didn't have as much money as he did before.
According to police, Gospel Outreach informed them that as a nonprofit organization, it collects annual dues that total about 10% of each member's yearly income. The Carneys believe Tim may have felt pressured to give Gospel Outreach more than just 10%.
He was giving a lot to the church. He got a part-time job also on top of his full-time job.
We didn't realize the income that he had, it just wasn't enough to live on after all that he was giving to the church.
I do believe that he may have had to pay using credit card debt and things like that to remain a part of this congregation.
According to Tim's family, the impact of his contributions to the church was evident.
I just remember a conversation with my mother and my brother. My mother telling him that, you know, he needed new shoes. And I remember my brother getting upset and telling her that you're expected to give 10% or more than 10%. 10% seemed to be the minimum that they were expected to give to Gospel Outreach and Pastor Lethbridge.
Still, investigators have no way of knowing whether finances, church-related or otherwise, play any role in Tim's disappearance. With no new information, the search for Tim Carney begins to look bleak.
What makes it disturbing is you have a whole lot of questions, but we don't really have any answers, nor do we have a way to find those answers because there are no leads.
Coming up, witnesses say they've seen Tim. But is it him? And is he in danger?
He seemed very tense and very nervous.
25-year-old Tim Carney has always loved mystery novels. And after vanishing on September 28, 2004, some evidence suggests that Tim may have written himself into a mystery of his own creation. Police find Tim's wallet and car within 1 week of his disappearance. They establish that neither the wallet nor his car show signs of foul play. Then, a man looking like Tim appears on bank surveillance footage, withdrawing nearly all the money in Tim's checking account. With hopes that Tim might still be nearby, the Carney family works tirelessly to find him.
I was passing out flyers for various businesses and restaurants along Route 23, the corridor where Tim would drive his car to and from work.
About 3 weeks after Tim disappears, the flyers pay off. On October 21st, police receive a call from employees at the Terminal 1 bar. It's about a 10-minute drive from Newark Airport and the construction site where Tim's car was abandoned. They report that somebody matching Tim's description has been seen at the bar in recent weeks. Ignacio Pinto, the owner of Terminal 1 bar, remembers the man on the flyer specifically for what he didn't do.
He never consumed any alcohol, which is one of the reasons that it stood out to me. I mean, being the owner, I'm looking for people to always be drinking. He drank water every time.
Apparently, he also drew attention for being an unusually reserved bar patron.
What I remember about him the most is really the look in his eyes. Like he had a lot of inner turmoil, and he had a lot of stuff that he was just, you know, in his mind that he was thinking about. I mean, most people come to a bar, they come to sort of, you know, let loose, and he was anything but that. His look, his energy was saying, leave me alone. He seemed very tense and very nervous.
If this was Tim, he didn't seem to be a man on the run.
He didn't look like somebody that was homeless. He was fairly well dressed. He wasn't dirty in any way, but he was always dressed the same. A pair of slacks and a buttoned shirt. Sort of office wear. Looking back now, I think he was just killing time more so than anything. I think he probably didn't have any other place to go to, and this was sort of a place for him to spend some time.
Ignacio recalls clearly the last time the Terminal 1 bar had a visit from the man he identifies from the flyer.
We had a problem with him, which I believe was the last time that we saw him here.
After keeping to himself for about 2 weeks, the normally quiet customer shows a sudden change in attitude toward a female bartender when he accuses her of stealing his wallet.
He caused a ruckus because the bartender said, you know, look, you gonna buy a drink or not? And then he accused the bartender of stealing his wallet and just making a scene at the bar.
My bartender wanted him thrown out because he was rude, said something that was inappropriate, and he tried to reach and grab her. We just asked him to leave. He left. He didn't really put up a fight. He just took off. And we never saw him after that.
The report of this incident leaves the Carney family concerned about Tim.
He's not a confrontational person. He didn't like fighting with his sister. He didn't like fighting with anyone.
That's not the Tim that we know. I don't know if he was doing that to bring attention to himself, that he wanted to be found.
With the unusual sightings of Tim, the Carneys considered the frightening thought that perhaps he might not be able to find his way home.
We were thinking at that point he might have hit his head. Maybe he didn't know who he was. We went everywhere we could think of, because if something did happen and he didn't know who he was, I'm sure your whole personality changes.
The Carneys continue their search, hoping Tim might still be within reach.
We gathered a team, and every day, every night, there were teams working on different things. One team would go out to homeless shelters or hospitals or supermarkets to put up flyers, and others would go to just local businesses and just people on the street.
Ed Carney believes that despite Tim's education and intellectual strengths, he would be no match for a life on the streets.
He's not streetwise. He would be taken advantage of so easily. If he had to live on the streets, I just don't see him surviving.
2 weeks after Tim Carney vanishes, his family must face a sad reality. Tim is really gone.
We went to go clean out his apartment because his lease, it was up. I think it was particularly difficult for my parents. My sister and I kept having to reassure them that everything would be okay. It was just stuff. It really didn't matter. What mattered is finding him and bringing him home, not how many shirts he had in his closet or what was on his coffee table.
10 months pass before a new development emerges in Tim's case. When private investigator Al Schumann is canvassing the area around the Terminal 1 bar, he uncovers a lead. Employees at a deli near the bar say they spotted Tim 2 to 3 months earlier, in the spring after his disappearance.
That particular deli was a real find. They definitely identified him by his photographs. He frequented that place 2 or 3 times.
The man usually bought a soda. It's another purchase that makes Al confident this could be Tim.
He bought a phone card, which would explain no further cell phone calls from or to anyone.
However, further searches of the area come up empty. The investigation hits a wall.
Unfortunately, there are so many variables of what could have happened to him, although I think that he has chosen his own destiny. And that is why we do not have any lead information to find him. Being a mother, I imagine it is probably one of the most difficult things that this family has had to deal with, not knowing what happened to their son. One way or the other, the family needs some type of closure to move on with their own lives.
Since the week of Tim's disappearance that autumn in 2004, the Carneys never hear from Pastor Lethbridge or any other members of Gospel Outreach. Still, upon investigation, detectives find no connection between Gospel Outreach and Tim's disappearance. Both Pastor Lethbridge and Gospel Outreach have denied that their congregation practices excessive control or financial impropriety.
None of their actions are a crime. Our investigation never led us to believe that any part of the congregation was party to Mr. Carney being missing. In itself, being part of a religious group is not a crime. What they teach is not a crime, and people have a right to choose what they want to believe in.
As the weeks turn into months and then years, Tim's family hopes he is still safe somewhere, but wrestle with the possibility that they may never see their would-be writer son again.
Never did we dream that it would be going on 6 years.
It's the little things that you really miss the most. It's waking up on Christmas and not being together as a family. Seeing all of our stockings come off the fireplace and his just there.
Every single day is hard, but you know, you just have to get up. You have to go to work. There's just stuff that you have to do. You don't want to do it. You want to stay under the covers and hide, but you can't. I hope he's well. It's the not knowing that's what's the big puzzle. That's what hurts.
Thank you for watching Investigation Discovery on Demand.
Patty Atkins disappeared on June 29, 2001. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Patty Atkins' last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to her. Single mom Patty Atkins vanishes in the middle of the night, and her family fears the worst.
I trusted Patty that she knew this man. You don't think the worst is going to happen. You don't think that's the last time that you're going to speak to your little sister.
Investigators piece together a disturbing picture of her life.
There's something wrong here. It just makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck.
She had said there can't be any paper trail of the money.
But will detectives get the break they need to unravel the mystery?
We checked airlines, we checked passports. We found no evidence of her just taking off.
Patty's loved ones wait for some sign of her, hoping it's not too late.
I don't think she would run away. Nothing would keep her from her daughter. There's no one who could convince me of that.
June 29th, 2001. It's the Friday before July 4th in Marysville, Ohio, about 35 miles north of Columbus. 29-year-old Patty Atkins is looking forward to the week-long vacation known as Shutdown at the Honda factory where she works as an assembly line team leader.
They always shut down the week of 4th of July, and she was supposed to be going away on a trip with a coworker.
Her sisters remember Patty describing plans to go to Canada with an employee Patty says she has been involved with for a couple of years.
She told me, he really wants to take me up there. It's really pretty, and you know, it'll just be our chance to be away from everything. She was excited about her trip with her boyfriend. She was head over heels in love with this man.
Patty has worked as a Honda associate, as employees are called, since she was 19. One of the few women on the assembly line, she's hoping to get a promotion in the next few months.
Patty loved working at Honda. She had started at the bottom and worked her way up. Patty was good with people. She was excited about a test that she was taking to advance. She was ready for the next level of leadership.
When Patty isn't working, she dotes on her 7-year-old daughter, McKaylee.
For her birthday party, she had a slumber party, and Patty would dance with them and just have fun with her, snuggle with her. I can't think of anything she wouldn't have done for her. She adored her. She adored her, loved her so much. And McKaylee adored her mom just as much as her mom adored her. Patty loved being a mother, and I loved seeing her smile when she looked at McKaylee.
Her sister Marcia recalls Patty planning the future she would build for McKaylee with the new man in her life.
She had talked to me about where they would live and that they'd talked about wanting more kids.
Patty, the youngest of 5 siblings, wasn't known to fall for guys easily.
Patty was independent. She was not one of those people who was never okay without a boyfriend. She wasn't willing to give up time with her daughter. It was uncharacteristic of her to be that trusting of a man.
That Friday, June 29th, in preparation for her trip, Patty brings McKaylee to stay with her ex-husband.
She was supposed to leave Friday night right after work. I was to get my niece Wednesday, and then Patty would be coming to my house to pick up McKaylee on Sunday, July 8th around noon.
Before heading to her 3:30 to midnight shift at Honda, Patty brings her pets to the vet to be boarded for the week. Since she and Marcia usually speak every day, Patty calls her sister one last time before her trip.
She was supposed to be going to a remote part of Canada, not in phone service area, so she wouldn't be able to call. She left me a message and said, I'll try to stop on the road, but if I don't talk to you, I'll just see you on Sunday. Kiss, kiss, I love my sis. That's just a thing my sister and I always said to each other. Kiss, kiss, I love my sis. That's how we said goodbye to each other.
It's the last shift before the week-long vacation. Patty has told her sister that she plans to drive straight from work to a cabin in Canada with her boyfriend in his pickup truck. When the shift ends, hundreds of Honda associates dash out of work, eager to begin their vacations. At 19 seconds past midnight, Patty Atkins clocks out of her shift and disappears. On Sunday, July 8th at noon, while McKaylee is playing, Marcia expects Patty to pick her up after the trip to Canada. But Patty doesn't arrive.
Hi. Called her house and left a message on the answer machine. That was around 12:30. When she didn't pick up, I guess I was just thinking they were running late.
Marcia is puzzled. It's not like Patty to be late without calling.
Called again at 1, 1:30. Half-hour increments that turned into 15-minute increments that turned into 5-minute increments. I was calling my sister, just repeat dialing. More time passed, I kept calling her house. She still didn't answer.
Marcia begins to worry. She calls the man Patty had said she was going away with. A woman answers the phone. It's not Patty. Coming up, did Patty ever make it to Canada?
So what did you do to her? I can't believe you're saying you don't know her.
Just after midnight on Friday, June 29th, 2001, Patty Atkins clocks out at the Honda factory in Marysville, Ohio, and vanishes. Patty had arranged to pick up her 7-year-old daughter, McKaylee, from her sister Marcia's house on Sunday, July 8th. When Patty doesn't arrive, Marcia calls her house. After a couple of hours, Marcia finally calls the man Patty said she was going away with. When a woman picks up the phone, Marcia isn't surprised. She knows it's the man's wife.
Patty had told me about someone who she was talking to at work, how much she liked, talking to him. He was so funny and things like that. And then spilled the beans that he was married, that he had a wife and kids. And I was like, oh, no, you don't want that.
Marcia remembers Patty describing why she felt so strongly about continuing a relationship with this married man.
Their relationship was more to her like this soulmate thing, being able to talk to him and tell him anything. All she ever talked about is they would just have these long talks and he'd make her laugh. I think she thought that they would actually be married. To me, she had plans of a future with him.
From the information that he had given her, she didn't think she was breaking up a good thing. She thinks she's, she just happened to come in on something that was bad. It was going to break up anyways. I don't think if they had a good marriage, Patty would have pursued it.
Patty's sisters made it clear they didn't approve of her seeing a married man.
I told her I thought she was being naive. People get played all the time. They always say they're going to leave their wives and they don't, and you're just the mistress. But she felt like she had this incredible connection with him.
Marcia and Janine began to realize that talking their strong-willed little sister out of this romance was a losing battle.
I recall myself saying, well, if he's having an affair with you, what makes you think he's not going to do the same thing to you? And, oh, he loves me and he wouldn't do that to me. She'd already made up her mind and I just let it go, decided not to be judgmental.
She just basically brushed me off as you just don't know him. But she knew better that I should trust her judgment.
Patty's vision of a future with her soulmate led her to give him more than just her heart, as her friends and family would soon learn. In July of 2000, 1 year before Patty disappears, she visited her sister Janine in Miami, Florida. Patty had just recently told Janine she was involved with this married coworker when she revealed more surprising news on their way to get him a gift at the Hard Rock Cafe.
She wanted to get him a t-shirt from the Hard Rock. And then she started talking more about their future plans together, that he owned a business with his brother-in-law, and he was going to sell his share, and it wouldn't be in his name any longer. And that's when he was going to ask his wife for a divorce, and that way she would have no rights to his business.
According to Janine, it was then that Patty shared how she was helping make a future with this man a reality.
Patty told me that she had given him a lot of money. She had already given him maybe $20,000 so that he could pay off the business sooner, and that way they could be together sooner.
Janine tried cautioning Patty, who had been building a nest egg for about 10 years.
I questioned her about that, and she's like, oh yeah, but he'll give me the money back after the divorce. Patty was always pretty good with her money, and it sounded like she had a plan, so I didn't push any further.
Patty's family knew well that she could be as generous as she was strong-willed.
It was shocking the amount of money she was helping him out with, but it was totally characteristic of Patty to help somebody out. To Patty, relationships were more important than any materialistic things. Once she decided she loved him, I think she's willing to do anything for him.
When Marcia learned about the loan, she was less diplomatic about her concern.
What do you mean you're loaning him money? How much money? Are you crazy? You've worked all this time to save all this money, and worked so hard for it.
For every red flag Marcia tried raising, she only heard Patty respond with faith in her happily ever after.
I said to her, how's he going to pay all of that back? And she just said he has to start gradually paying it back. Kind of how she had lent it to him, not in one big lump sum. She had said he had to start paying that money back in July.
Hours after Patty is supposed to walk through Marcia's front door, and more than a week after she clocked out of her Honda shift, Marcia is asking the wife of her sister's coworker if he's home.
I just said that I was inquiring about his business as something that I needed as a potential customer. She said he'd be back later in the afternoon. I thought that was a good thing, because that just meant they weren't back yet.
Marcia calls around to Patty's friends, but no one has heard from her. By 5 o'clock, Marcia is desperate to find Patty. She tries calling the man again. This time, he picks up. But Marcia is stunned by what she says she hears.
I said, where's my sister? I said, what do you mean? I said, Patty, my sister, you guys went away. And he got quiet and got a little bit, I don't know how to describe, just different, Patty. Oh, you mean from Honda? And just kind of vague. And I said, yes. And he goes, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Stuttering, stammering. I said, what did you do to her? because she left with you. I know she was leaving with you. I can't believe you're saying you don't know her. And then I panicked.
After hearing the man deny any relationship with Patty, Marcia is haunted by concerns she'd had all along about the trip to Canada.
I recall saying that I just really didn't like not being able to hear from her for a whole week. It just didn't sit well with me. Something didn't seem right about it.
Marcia calls her sister Janine, who is visiting their mom in Indiana.
She was really worried. I could hear the concern in her voice. She's like, Jeannie, Patty hasn't called. It was very unlike Patty. Patty always called to speak to McKaylee the moment she got back.
Since their mother is within earshot, Janine has to break the news about Patty.
I told my mom that Patty hadn't been seen, that we think she was missing. Told Mom what I knew, that she was supposed to go away with her boyfriend to Canada, and she just... she knew immediately it wasn't right. And to see your mother learn that news firsthand, the look on her face.
I was bawling and I was sobbing and couldn't even talk, and my husband was trying to find out what was wrong with me because I was outside because I didn't want to upset my niece.
At about 7 p.m. on the day Patty was to have picked up McKaylee, her sister Marcia calls the Marysville Police Department to report her sister missing. At 3 o'clock in the morning, sleepless with worry, Marcia calls the man again.
I basically said to the wife that I was Patty's sister. She was supposed to go away with your husband. She's been loaning him money over the past 2 years. She maybe spoke to me for about 15 minutes and then gave the phone to him. He was like, what makes you think that I knew your sister so well? And I just gave him details, things she had said about the trip, gifts she had bought him. I knew that he had a motorcycle, I knew all about his business, knew about his wife, knew about his kids, all these things. He would just ask questions, probing questions. In hindsight, I think they wanted to see how much I knew.
In the moment, Marcia can't fully take in what's happening.
It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd cried for probably 10 hours straight, so I wasn't really thinking, why is he asking me this? Later the next day, I was thinking about it. I had a conversation for 45 minutes with this guy and his wife. Why did they stay on the phone with me? Because I sure wouldn't.
After hearing the man's denial of any relationship with Patty, Marcia clings to the hope that police will find some evidence linking him to her sister's disappearance.
I don't think she would run away. Nothing would keep her from her daughter. There's no one who could convince me of that.
Coming up, investigators close in on the crucial moment Patty may have disappeared.
They thought that was different because Patty was always the last one to leave.
In July of 2001, Patty Atkins never arrives to pick up her young daughter, McKaylee. Patty is supposed to be returning from a week in Canada with a married coworker. After Patty's sister Marcia files a missing persons report with the Marysville Police, Detective Jeff Stiers and Lieutenant Jamie Patton from the Union County Sheriff's Office begin working Patty's case. When searching her house for clues, investigators find nothing that indicates what may have happened to Patty.
Nothing was torn up to suggest any sort of foul play. The doors were locked. Car was in the garage. It appeared that in her closets, in her drawers, all her clothes was there. It told me that whether she walked away or it was foul play, I don't think it happened here. At this point, we had a missing persons report, and we didn't know what we had as far as if a crime had been committed. We took some financial records and Patty's computer for processing.
Detective Stiers interviews Patty's colleagues at Honda, including the team members who worked with Patty the night she disappeared.
That day, she had talked to everybody on her line and made it very clear that she wanted the area cleaned up and everything done so she could leave at midnight. In talking with the associates there, they thought that that was different because Patty was always the last one to leave. I met nobody that was able to tell me that they'd ever seen Patty leave first. So this was different. At midnight, everything was cleaned up. She left the line and was one of the first ones to punch the time clock. She went down the tunnel, she clocked out, got to the top of the stairs. That was the last time she was seen.
When Stiers questions associates, he learns Patty was sometimes seen talking with the married coworker.
They didn't think much about it because in her role as a team leader, it wasn't uncommon for Patty to walk around and talk to people. There was no flirtation around this coworker reported when talking with the associates.
But detectives get a different picture from a friend of Patty's at Honda. Since the friend doesn't want her name revealed, we'll call her Jane. Jane says Patty confided in her about her relationship with the married coworker.
Patty didn't talk about her personal life a whole lot, except for her close friends. Her friend said that Patty had told her she was being very quiet about this because the guy was married. Not many people knew the details.
Investigators learn that Patty only mentioned getting together with this man a handful of times outside of work.
It appears to be an emotional relationship between the two of them, because if it was physical, there wasn't a lot of it going on. They met, I think, 2 or 3 times. If they met more, she didn't tell anybody about it. The relationship between the two of them is kind of a mystery.
Patty's friend Jane recalls how happy Patty seemed whenever she'd visit the married man on the line, especially as the trip drew closer. It was the same excitement Marcia had seen in her sister. For Marcia, it was clear this trip held greater meaning for Patty than just a relaxing vacation.
In Patty's eyes, it was sort of the beginning of them getting to actually be together. Up to that time, they really didn't spend lots of time together other than seeing each other at work and a handful of times maybe outside of work.
She thought if he was willing to spend a week with her up in Canada, that he must really mean it. He's going to follow through with this. If he's willing to take me and not her and the kids, then he's telling her the truth. He was going to leave his wife. She believes him. So she was excited.
As investigators interview Patty's closest friends and family, they learn that Patty's sisters, her best friend, and Jane were the only people whom Patty told about the trip to Canada. These few confidants tell detectives that the trip Patty described involved some surprising arrangements. Patty told her sister Marcia that she wasn't supposed to pack any clothes.
Supposedly they were going to buy all their stuff there, and I was like, well, if it's so remote, where are you going to buy anything? You know, what about food? Where are you going to sleep? She couldn't even give me a location. Just it was a remote place in Canada.
Jane recalls Patty's excitement about the trip as they drove to work that Friday.
Patty rode to work with her, leaving her vehicle at home, which she typically did not do. She typically drove herself to work, and the plan was that she would leave after work with this male friend.
Jane says that the alleged boyfriend would use a service truck from his business for the trip. Then, investigators get an important lead.
When shift was over, she was going to clock out just a couple minutes earlier than usual so she could sneak into his truck in the back bed of the truck.
The key to the plan involved something called a tonneau cover, a sturdy cloth that fits over the bed of a pickup truck. Jane tells authorities the same story as Janine, describing how Patty was to hide in the bed of the truck while her married coworker drove a carpool buddy home after work.
Patty was to get underneath that tonneau cover so that her coworker's friend did not know that she was in the back of the truck.
Once he dropped off his friend, she was to join him in the front end of the pickup truck, and they were going to go off to Canada.
Jane believes that Patty considered hiding in the truck to be part of the excitement of their secret trip, trusting they'd be spending their lives together. Patty's sister Janine remembers her reaction to the plan.
That struck me as odd, but she seemed happy and I didn't want to squash it. I trusted Patty that she knew this man. You don't think the worst is going to happen. You don't think that's the last time that you're going to speak to your little sister.
While the sheriff's team look into all possible leads, they now believe it's unlikely that Patty vanished on her own.
We checked airlines, we checked passports, and we found no evidence of her just taking off. Out of all the people that we spoke to, no one mentioned her, wanting to leave.
With Patty's loved ones telling detectives about her travel plans with the married man, as well as the loans and gifts she described giving him, investigators head out to interrogate him and search his property.
All friends of Patty's gave us the same information, not knowing that they had given us the same information. And so that's what made them credible.
Adding all those things up, the money, the relationship, it just makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck that there's something wrong here. A mother just doesn't leave her daughter and run off. Is it possible? Has there been cases of mothers running off and leaving their daughters? Sure, but with all the other factors that we're looking at, good job, promotion, she loved her daughter, it just didn't add up.
Coming up, police may be closing in on finding Patty.
The dogs kind of went nuts over the concrete. That made me hopeful, sick but hopeful.
On July 13th, 2001, 2 weeks after Patty Atkins is last seen, investigators head out to search the property of the married man Patty said she'd been seeing. Detective Jeff Stiers knows that investigators need to verify key information and evidence identified by Patty's friends and family.
We knew about the trip to Canada, all the money, the items that she had purchased for this coworker, such as a Hard Rock Cafe t-shirt. What we were looking for when we went there was anything that would link the coworker to Patty.
When authorities arrive at the man's home, he consents to a search of his property, as well as the business he co-owns in another town. While Lieutenant Patton and other officers head to the business with the man, Detective Stiers stays at the house to search the property and interview his wife.
She did not seem to have any knowledge of Patty Atkins. She denied him having an affair with Patty, said that it wasn't possible. He goes to work and he comes home after work every night.
The wife tells police her husband came home the night Patty disappeared at about 2:30 a.m. She says he was home that week, doing projects around their property with a friend. As police begin searching, the man's wife leads them to a potential clue. It looks like the gift Patty got for the man in Miami.
We found the Hard Rock Cafe t-shirt. I don't believe the wife knew where that t-shirt came from.
Investigators' suspicions are heightened. They expand the search.
We brought in a canine, a cadaver dog, and we used that dog to search the property for Patty's body.
Suddenly, the dog begins indicating near some freshly poured concrete by the house garage.
Once that dog alerts, there's a possibility that a body had been laid here or is buried here.
According to the man's wife, it was leftover concrete from a construction project during shutdown week. Police send for a backhoe to begin digging up the spot.
That made me hopeful, sick but hopeful. As much as it sickened me to think of her under there, I wanted her to be found because then it would move the process forward a step. Because you just feel like you're in this constant standstill.
Meanwhile, investigators at the man's business have been questioning him about Patty.
Outside of knowing her at work He denied any relationship whatsoever with her. He denied having any plans whatsoever to leave out of town with her. He denied accepting any money from her, and he indicated he was happily married and he had no plans of getting a divorce.
According to the man, the Friday that Patty was last seen, he left Honda around midnight with his friend, picked up some fast food, dropped his friend off, and went home. The friend later corroborates his story. Just as his wife tells Detective Stiers, the man says he was nowhere near Canada during shutdown week.
He worked mostly around the house all that week until that Thursday. He went fishing with a couple buddies, but he didn't go out of town any great distance.
He also denies knowing any remote cabin in Canada, leaving investigators unable to pinpoint an area where they might search for Patty. Finally, detectives ask the man about receiving any gifts from Patty.
He denied anything, but then later indicated he may have received a birthday card from her.
The man tells detectives that he ripped up the birthday card, thinking his wife might become jealous. Given that the man tells police he really didn't know Patty, Lieutenant Patton is intrigued by this detail.
I just don't all of a sudden get a birthday card from, somebody at work unless, we're really good friends. Maybe the unit goes together and, gives a birthday card, but individual birthday card in a plant of around 4,000 employees, I would think that would be a little odd if there wasn't more to it.
Investigators spot the business's pickup truck, which Patty had said would be used for the trip to Canada.
When we went to the business and we seen the truck, it had the equipment for a tonneau cover, but it was not on the vehicle, so we knew that we had to search for it.
The man directs authorities to a storage loft, where they find the rolled-up cover. When questioned about it, the man says he ordered the cover a few days before the shutdown holiday began, then picked it up June 29th, the Friday that Patty was last seen.
June 29th, he picked it up early that morning and installed it on his truck. Approximately a week later, the tonneau cover was taken off and then stored and never put back on the truck after July 6th.
The man tells investigators he'd ordered the tonneau cover to protect his fishing gear, but investigators are curious about the short time span of the cover's use.
It didn't make sense for him to install it and not leave it on. They're not cheap, they're a couple $100.
The manager at the business tells investigators he specifically noticed the arrival of the cover. It had seemed like a strange choice to him.
His service manager indicated that he was surprised that he had purchased this tonneau cover because of what they use that truck for. They run parts, they run radiators, and they haul stuff on it, so it really didn't make sense putting that tonneau cover on that truck.
Authorities take the cover in for forensics testing.
They would look for any trace evidence on the tonneau cover, any foreign type material that's not supposed to be there. Hair fibers, bodily fluid, saliva are some examples.
Back at the man's house, police have dug a hole in the concrete slab where the cadaver dog detected the possible presence of human remains.
We got the call and they didn't find anything. There was no sign of her. And that was disappointing. It's like back to square one. No answers, more frustration.
The search effort expands as law enforcement sends teams across several counties to find Patty.
We conducted organized searches with Honda, Marysville Police Department, the Sheriff's Office. We also had volunteers on foot searching. It was a large area.
Patty's family, desperate to find any sign of her, also assembles search parties.
We went up and down railroad tracks and tree lines, creeks and trails, little country roads, cornfields, went through lots of fields. Just random places. Hot days, lots of bug bites. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack, literally.
with no sign of Patty, and the man she called her soulmate denying any affair with her, forensic evidence may be the only way investigators can confirm whether Patty got into his truck that night. Coming up, investigators find evidence that might finally connect Patty with her married coworker.
It puts, in our mind, Patty in that truck, under that tonneau cover.
Patty Atkins' family and loved ones believe the man she said she was having an affair with may be responsible for her disappearance. Investigators searching his business locate the truck covering under which Patty was supposed to have hidden for a secret trip to Canada. Now, as detectives wait for forensic lab results, they review Patty's financial records for some sign of the thousands of dollars in loans her friends and family say she'd been making to him. Investigators find significant withdrawals from her accounts.
$30,000 taken out of her 401k, $25,000 on a second mortgage, cash advances out on her credit cards. She cashed in stock. From around 2000 until 2001, roughly about a year and a half, $90,000 is exactly what we could show she took out.
Yet while authorities can document the money Patty liquidated, when they examine the man's accounts, there's no evidence he received this money from her.
We can show she pulled the money out, but we can't track it from that point on.
I had one time said to her, do you have any kind of proof of it? Or are you keeping like a promissory note? She had said, no, we can't actually sign something because if she finds out, then she'll know, and then he's gonna call it off, so there can't be any paper trail.
With still no solid evidence linking Patty to the married coworker, detectives wait for forensic results from the tonneau cover. In the meantime, search teams continue canvassing the area for any leads on the 29-year-old single mom's whereabouts. Patty Atkins has been missing for 5 weeks when the crime lab contacts investigators with a key lead.
Blood was found to be on the underneath side of the tonneau cover, along with cat hairs.
Now, detectives need DNA analysis of the blood and cat hair to see if this trace evidence could have come from Patty and her pets. Investigators speculate the cat hair could have rubbed off of Patty's clothing. They send the hair sample to a lab in Texas, one of the few that tests animal DNA. While scientists evaluate the evidence, Patty's family wrestles with questions about what may have happened to her.
Nighttime comes and you try to go to sleep and thoughts start racing in. It's just a crushing pain. Like somebody's squeezing your heart and they won't let go. Just thinking, oh, if you could just get so lucky and actually find something.
Finally, investigators get a break in the case.
The lab down in Texas was able to confirm that some of the hairs taken from the tonneau cover matched Patty's cats.
There's a short window of opportunity that tarp's even on the truck. And then it's rolled up and stored above his office area. So how do you explain Patty's cat hair on the bottom of that tonneau cover? It puts, in our mind, Patty in that truck, under that tonneau cover.
For Patty's family, the news brings bittersweet consolation.
My first reaction was that we had some hard evidence, besides just the hearsay that she had plans with him, that she had a relationship with him. Patty was in the back of that truck, and he definitely knows something that, he's not telling the police.
Investigators and the Union County Prosecutor's Office consider Patty's married coworker to be their main person of interest in what they believe is a homicide case. Meanwhile, investigators have been working to determine whether the blood found on the tonneau cover could be Patty's. The crime lab tells detectives that the blood sample is tiny, just a speck.
How it was described to me is if you would kill a mosquito, the amount of blood that you're going to get out of a mosquito is the amount of blood that was found on the tonneau cover.
Unfortunately, forensics says this presents a problem.
If that sample was tested, it would consume the entire sample.
The crime lab advises Union County Prosecuting Attorney David Phillips that DNA testing on the blood sample might not give conclusive results.
The technicians contacted law enforcement, contacted our office and said, wait, hopefully the forensic technology will enable us to test it with a much higher degree of confidence. And so we've waited.
Since forensics technology is constantly evolving, the prosecutor agrees to hold off on testing and wait for more advanced methods.
We could present the case to grand jury, ask them to consider is there sufficient evidence, but you can only try someone once. And so if we found the evidence at a later date, if the evidence showed, yes, that was her blood, we'd never get another opportunity.
Several months after Patty goes missing, Marcia has a candid conversation with Patty's daughter, McKaylee.
She asked me, do you think Mommy died? I said, you know, I think Mommy's in heaven. I think that's the only thing that would keep your Mommy from you. It's sad. It's sad to think she's lost her mom.
That moment crystallizes the sinking feeling Marcia and Patty's family have had since that Sunday in July.
From the moment he told me he didn't know her, I never had any hope that my sister was going to be found alive. The fact that she didn't come get her daughter, to me, was the sign that she was dead. There was nothing that would have kept her from her daughter.
I feel like there's something that you should have done to protect your baby sister. She was always there for other people, and we felt like we should have been there for her.
While Patty's family hoped for a resolution to her case, cherished memories may be their only comfort.
My sister used to call me at midnight to be the first one to wish me happy birthday. So it would be like 12:01 and my phone would ring. Sometimes I think I wait for my phone to ring. I want to hear her say, kiss, kiss, I love my sis again. Anyone who has a sister they're close to, it's more than losing your sister. It's like losing a best friend.
Now, years after the speck of blood is found on the tonneau cover, the wait may finally have paid off.
Every so often we call the lab, and recently we have learned that technology is just around the corner. It's going to be very soon that that test can be done without consuming that entire sample.
Forensics might soon confirm whether the blood is Patty's, possibly linking the married coworker to her disappearance. Meanwhile, the sheriff's office still pursues every lead that comes in, hoping to bring some peace to Patty's family.
Patty's daughter is now 16 years old. No doubt has many questions and wonders what happened to Mom. As an investigator, as a father, you know, I would love to give those answers to her.
Watching McKaylee grow up over the years has been a joy. She's a really good heart, just like her mom, very loving. I know my sister would be so proud of her, and I tell her that all the time, how proud her mommy would be of her.
Ultimately, her loved ones know that Patty will live on by inspiring those she left behind.
She had the biggest heart of anyone I knew. I just try to have a heart like Patty did for my friends and my family. That was the best thing about Patty, was her heart. She had the biggest heart of anyone I knew. I just try to have a heart like Patty did for my friends and my family. That was the best thing about Patty, was her heart.